Welcome to the Bullcaster Podcast, episode 39. Our guest today is Tony Siragusa, probably best known as the owner of the Formula Works Karting Team, which has become a staple here in SoCal, but also on the national scene as well. We're going to get a chance to chat with him. We don't really know a bunch about him. He's only been in the karting game, I think, for a handful of years.
That's what it seems like. And then he puts up a throwback picture of it being like 10 years ago. We're like, holy crap.
It's been that long. Wow. So looking forward to getting him on board here and playing around with that. But, of course, we got some current events to get out of the way here, Derek. The last time that we recorded has been a few weeks here, I think, or a couple weeks at least, and we've had a Tri-C race since then. So we had a big, long gap in racing.
Second to last round for us at Tri-C.
Yeah, exactly that. You're going for a championship, as everybody knows. I am not, just doing the test and tune gig. But this time around, I was doing double test and tune. We'll get to that in a second, but let's talk about your championship hopes and hardware run and stuff like that. It was a up and down day for you.
Yeah. Man, we...
I'm looking at you right now like, I don't actually want to talk about this.
Thinking match, but no, it was definitely up and down. Tony, who's actually here today, was tuning for me all weekend, which was actually a lot of fun, and I think we made a lot of progression. So did a few bigger changes on Friday, went into Saturday feeling pretty good and had some solid pace. Qualified P6. Unfortunately, chain came off in the first few laps of the heat race, and would have to start from last in the next one.
Who was doing the engine tightening and the alignment? Was that you?
I think it was
It was probably you, wasn't it?
It was a little bit of Tony and I think Cameron Jocelyn, another previous guest.
Two people to do it?
Yeah.
Maybe that was one too many.
Yeah. You said you got that right, but yeah. But had a good bounce back from the last heat, went from like 20th to 10th or so.
That's right, 2 heats for Tri-C.
Yeah, so felt good going into the main. I mean, I knew we had pace, and the cart was just working really well that day. Went from 10th to 5th in about a lap and a half, and then a tire went down. My left front actually debeated a little bit from contact on the start, I think. So
yeah, we were looking at the bodywork in your car, and you had a few extra black marks on the nose there. So it definitely looks like turn one might have been a bit of an issue for you.
Yeah, I think honestly, I still can barely remember like the start. There's just, I mean, through the S, there's just a lot of shit that can happen. But
20 some odd go-karts in the KA senior category.
Yeah, so ended up ending early. I mean, we had a few DNFs on the day, but still was like the way I kind of thought about it was successful failure, because I think we found a lot out about the package that day as far as how to run it here at Cal Speed and a few other things. But I just felt strong all day.
Right,
I felt like I could really go for a win. And
from what you're talking to during the day, it seemed like you were actually feeling the best you had all season since the very, very beginning of the year.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think we were kind of talking about it going into this last round, how since I had hurt my ribs and came back, I've been kind of on the back foot, just playing a little bit of catch up each time. And this last round, I feel like I was right where I should have been, I thought.
Yeah.
But we'll see how the points shake out. I don't think the championship the overall is in contention anymore, but a few of the other front runners had some random DNFs this weekend as well. Right. So a lot of the top guys were just either dropping out or having bad finishes or whatever. So
hardware's still definitely in the conversation.
I think so. Yeah. I want to go back and see how the points look, but no, it was still a really good weekend. Yeah, for sure.
And you know what? Like we had just talked about, the fact that you felt as good as you did.
Yeah.
Anytime you can feel good about the progression, it's going to make you feel better, even if you got a little bit off results. And it's not like you were slow.
Right, yeah.
Just had some bad luck, which, unfortunately, seems to follow you around, my man.
Yeah.
It's not so hot.
Walking in, there's ladders all the time.
There's a lot of black cats
going
out there.
There you go. It's a Matrix.
Ooh, it just came out to the trailer. Yeah. We're not enthused.
Moving on. But anyways, you got to do your standard KA stuff, but also got to jump back in a 206 and get ready for that Indiana race coming up.
Yeah, and obviously to make it all the more special, my dad was here. So got a chance to work with him. And I remember, so Jay Story and Sophia Story were here.
Right.
And we were pitting with them, and Rod Verlinger was here. And it's Rod and Jay that put that package together for him for this practice deal. And we're going to go back east to Indy for the Cup Karts Grand Nationals 5. And that will be happening the weekend right after this.
Cup Karts National 5? What?
Cup Karts Grand Nationals 5. That's what they call it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it's at Newcastle. And that was the whole thing here, is for my dad and I to,
Start working together again. Yeah.
I mean, he was a badass when I was 12 at tuning in 1994. So his grand return to tuning for me, Art Verlinger, who's given me the opportunity to go run with those guys, Art and Rod, who have given me the opportunity. He's like, so, what's your dad do and whatnot? And I'm like, well, he, works at a die-cast machine. He's a maintenance guy. He knows. He goes, all right, cool. I think he's just making sure he wasn't like a desk jockey or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That. That's desk, not disc. So you're on the same page. But
can it be both?
Yeah, sometimes. But my dad got right back into it and just soaked it all up. And we had a lot of fun. And by the end of the day, it was learning how to get because I haven't raced 206 now for a couple of years. So it was getting back into the swing. Understand what the hell you got to do with a 206 versus a KA or 100cc. And on Friday practice, it was actually the 100cc and then immediately into the 206. I could get done with the session and then run over to the grid to get back in and that is the worst. I would rather
back-to-back sessions, yeah.
Well, back-to-back sucks, but back-to-back faster kart to slower kart. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan. I'd rather go the other way, speed up versus slow down, because I was just effing up everything in the 206 on practice day. So on game day, it was 206 first. So
you already had kind of like I guess you could say the relearning curve against you, because been a few years since you've driven a 206, at least competitively, and now you're like, all right, now you got two packages in one day.
Yeah, the nice thing is that actually we still run sport karts all the time. So the 206 and the sport kart are very, very similar. You just have to adjust the grip you have and stuff like that. And without making this too long of a current events, I will also give a huge shout out to Jim Barry, Tom Nields, and actually Derek Burris was all in the time. The team tent for VMI this week, and we were doing the 100cc thing. And again, found speed throughout the day, running the VLR engine with a bunch of other KAs, and we're trying to get ready for the Vegas race, which is the first week in November. And I got to tell you, I feel real good about the W. We were able to pick up the win, beat Brett Harrelson, and anytime you're going to try to beat him, you got to be bloody quick.
Yeah.
And we were able to pull it off, and it was a good feeling on the weekend. We had fast time in 206, but
and you got a little bit of money at the end of the day too.
Oh right, yeah,
that was kind of cool.
I actually forgot about that.
Summer 100 deal.
The Summer 100 from Tracy was able to get P2 in that little championship. It was cool to see Gary Hall back and racing again, who was bloody quick, by the way. Fastest guy the entire weekend. Anyway, without rambling too far, because people don't really care too much about what we do. They want to hear about the guests.
We must press on.
It was a good weekend for us to learn or get faster or prep for the future. And one of the guys that has a lot to do with that, whether it be his own son that's moved up through the ranks, or obviously the people underneath his tent, is Tony Siragusa. So without further ado, let's bring him on, Tony Siragusa. Tony Siragusa, thanks for coming over here to the Cal Speeds here and hanging out with us on a Monday.
Thank you guys for having me here. This is awesome.
What do you do? I always jump in right out of the gate. What do you do that allows you to come out here? Now, we know that you do the Formula Works thing. We can get into that a little bit, but is that the only thing that Tony Siragusa's got his hands in?
No, but it's the full-time thing. We years ago I kind of retired from the distribution game. I was doing watches, luxury goods for the most part. And the full-time gig is Formula Works. It's everything from the distribution to the coaching to the logistics. That really takes up the majority of the week. But we also have a dental company. My dad had a dental business. He wanted to retire. My wife and I came to the agreement with my dad that we were going to buy it from him.
Oh, okay.
And my wife runs basically the day-to-day operations. I assist her with it a little bit, but for the most part, it's really her thing.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, so it's a dental laboratory distribution company. Guys, have fun Googling that. But that's her focus.
Gotcha.
So my wife Brenda runs that, but Formula Works is a full-time 8 in the morning to 8 at night. You know the gig. Everybody knows the gig in the go-kart world. You're working on stuff all day, all night trying to get it done.
But you were talking about you retired from you said luxury goods and watches and whatnot.
Yeah.
How do you go, hey, I do this for so long, and however long that was, maybe you can talk about that, but you retire from that, I'm going to start a karting team. Like,
yeah,
which is now
that's a natural progression,
yeah,
I would think.
I think everybody that has a karting
This
team.
is a 5-year plan.
Yeah. I actually just expected that Seth Nash already did
Retire.
luxury watches.
Yeah.
That's what you do, right?
No, so it was. So I had been
get the
doing
nest
that.
egg.
I had been doing that since the mid '90s. I got involved with it with my uncle years ago. He was in the jewelry business. Wanted to do something with watches. I was a young kid, could sell, so he put me out on the road, and I got good at it apparently. And then we built up brands, and we were kind of known as the guys that would bring brands to the U.S. that nobody knew of, like really obscure kind of names, but low production. And we had a network of jewelers that would carry the product and sell it, and they did pretty well. So we did really well with that for a lot of years. And then as time goes on, and anybody who's in the watch game, or the timepiece game as it's called when they're expensive, the big brands started taking over. They started buying up all the little brands and whatnot. And then, being a person that could go into a retailer and solve problems with them, like, oh, this isn't selling, this is, let's change these out, let's do some things. That went away. And they became order takers or inventory managers or
Gotcha.
traveling around.
The job's a little less robust.
Yeah, it's really controlled by the big groups now. There's about 4 big groups in the watch world that control everything.
Gotcha.
Rolex being one of them. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of travel. No less than 200 days a year, literally traveling.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not quite as much as racing, it sounds
And
like.
Yeah.
the biggest year I traveled 240 days.
Wow.
So
And was a lot of it in the States and out of the country? Kind of just everywhere?
it was basically North, South, and Central America was a lot of travel for me, and I would go to Europe several times a year.
Wow.
Wow, man.
So it was, and then as we built up and became more of a distribution company, and I was less of a sales rep, it was going to Europe a lot more to do the logistics and the planning for the holiday season, because that's an industry where 60 to 70% of the business is done in the last quarter of the year.
Oh, wow.
So you
Holy crap.
do your whole year based on that last quarter.
That's got to be a little
Stressful.
nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Little stressful. Big
Yeah.
dollars. I mean, big dollars coming in, big dollars going out.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. And you did that for 20, 25 years somewhere? in there?
No, it was just a little under 20 years.
Just a little under 20.
Yeah. So and then I consulted a little bit afterwards with some people that wanted to bring brands to the U.S. They were small. I kind of helped them out with some of the networking there. But to your question, how does that transition from the watch world and traveling all over to karting? It doesn't. But my son Alex, who some people know from racing out here, my dad bought him a pull start lawnmower go-kart from Troy Adams, and we used to drive it around the street by our house. It was a little cul-de-sac that you could kind of cruise around in, and then one day the police came and said, yeah, you can't do that. So he begged me to take him to a go-kart track, and I had never been to a go-kart track out here.
Okay.
So he was 7 at the time. He's 19 now.
It's been a few years.
We took him to Adams in this pull start lawnmower death trap of a go-kart, because we made pedal extenders with all thread and with metal blocks at the end that if he fell, they would slice his leg open, whatever.
He had a suit on.
Yeah, he had a suit on. He had a helmet. I got a helmet off of eBay for $9. It was a solid
It was quite a
package.
steal.
They always say make sure you match the helmet for what you're trying to protect, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Alex turned out all right.
We were right on the edge there with $9.
Yeah.
Went out for his first day and was getting passed by Comer 50s and 80s, and because obviously this thing is a 5 horsepower
Right.
knockoff of a Briggs and Stratton.
Right.
And he pulled off the track and just looks at me. He goes, "I need to go faster." And I said, "Well, good for you. I don't know how to do that. So whatever."
What year is that?
So it's 13 years ago,
13.
whatever that number is. I can't do math.
So so you go from working in at this time, are you still doing the watch thing?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So your dad has the brilliant idea to get this go-kart. Is this the very first time you're experiencing racing at the time?
well, I wouldn't call it racing, but yeah, it was the very first time we went to a go-kart track where
Gotcha.
there's other
Go-karts.
people out there, and I'm watching dads, with tuners and driver coaches, and the Microns at the time had a data key or something that you plugged in, and then you went and you took it over to the laptop, and these guys were looking at stuff on the engines, and they're changing gears and chains, and I'm like, yeah, these guys are crazy.
Yeah. I just made sure the thing works. That's
yeah,
all
we had gas.
Yeah.
I had a gas can. That's all I brought to the track was a gas can.
Yeah, that's how you keep it running.
The
From what I
tires
hear.
that were on it were the tires that were on it. And then we went and did a rental car day over at Adams. When I say rental cart, the arrive and drive.
Right, yeah.
Not a sports cart. And he was just tall enough to fit in the seat. We did it like on a weekday. Nobody was there. He was the only one on track. And his little brother was not tall enough to get in the car.
Gotcha.
So we did that one day, and Alex he's a great kid. He's a little more introvert. He doesn't talk a lot. So right after that, he wouldn't stop talking about the carts, this, that, and how they worked. And I'm like, this is his thing. This is what he likes.
Right.
So we went on a little bit of a hunt, and like everybody probably starting out, I went to, Craigslist, and we found a guy who's selling a Burrell with a KPV on it, and it was too fast for his kid. He bought his kid a go-kart. It was just too fast for him. And we sold his other go-kart to somebody who was doing dirt track racing. And I said, all right, well, I'll match the money that you got for it, and we'll go get this go-kart. So went into the guy's office, saw the go-kart. It looked cool to me. Had FTK stickers all over it.
Oh, yeah. That means it's fast.
One of Andy's deals. And I had the kid go negotiate his deal. I said, yeah, okay, you're going to negotiate with my son. He's buying the go-kart. And the guy who was looking at me, he's like, you're a jerk. I don't want to negotiate with a kid, damn it. So my son's like, I have $900. That's all he had.
Yeah.
And I think he wanted, I don't know, $1,500 or something for it. And so he's looking at my kid, and he's got his eyes like real big. 900, that's all I have. And he looks at me. I go, that's all he brought. He's like, all right, take it. So that's how it started.
Nice.
And then we started going to Adams every Friday, Saturday, Sunday for a year. If I was home, we were at the track, and that was it. Or his dad or grandpa would take him every now and again. We never changed the gear forever.
It was the same deal as the 4-stroke. You just brought gas.
Yeah. Basically, I had a tool bag that had some channel locks in it, screwdriver, had a pipe wrench.
That's not how you do pipes, by the way. That's not how you change it.
Yeah.
And I had a Sharpie to do the alignment where we'd draw on the front tires and measure
Yeah, that's what you do.
front and back.
Everybody knows that. So that's how you get into karting, right? But at this point, we're talking, as you say, 13-ish years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You're, a grown man. So how's the little Tony go? And are you involved in racing or anything like that at a young age as a munchkin?
Now, I remember going to the Jersey Shore. I grew up in the East Coast.
Okay.
And they had these carts on the boardwalk. Now, you have to understand, the boardwalk is wood.
Literally boards.
Yeah, it's literally, big, huge planks. And, if money allowed or whatnot, I would get to go run those things. I loved it.
Is that like at a fair or something? You said, and again,
think of like, if people can imagine Coney Island, what a Coney Island would be. It's always there. It's Santa Monica Pier. It's always there with the Ferris wheel and stuff. So it's always there.
It's a year-round fair, if you
not
will,
year-round
on the
because
side.
it snows at the beach.
Really?
I know people out here don't get that, but it
No.
snowed there, so they would
The
shut
East
down.
Coast
In
does.
You know what?
in the winter.
Even we would get snow in the Northwest at the beach. It still seems counterintuitive that you would have sand and snow at the same time.
It's a thing.
It's a messed up
So
world.
I remember doing that and at fairs and whatnot. And I always used to kind of remember telling my dad, I really like this racing thing. And he just never gave it any attention. Come to find out later in my life, my father used to go-kart race. With his brother,
wow.
like McCullough engines, the whole thing back in the day.
Get out.
They were spending thousands of dollars in the 60s.
Well, that's why he said no.
Yeah, that's why he said no, because
Yeah.
there was no way he was
knew
going
what the
to
hell was
spend
going on.
that kind of money on, it's too expensive, forget it.
So you're doing the fair carts, if you will, at Coney Island.
Here and there, not Coney Island.
Or, excuse me,
but,
at
Jersey
on the
Shore,
boardwalk, yeah.
But it was never a thing. I was always into cars.
Okay.
Always into cars. I loved classic cars. Maybe they weren't so classic when I was younger. But
They just called them cars.
Yeah, they called them cars. But, my first car was a 65 Mustang, and my dad made me build it basically from scratch. I didn't know what I was doing. And then I had a 66 Pontiac after that, and then a 68 Camaro, and then
I assume in your teens this is happening.
Yeah, this is in my teens.
All right. So you get a chance to play around in go-karts at at the
young
boardwalk,
age, but nothing competitive.
but nothing ever got competitive on that deal. But you did already have I like to drive. I like being around that stuff. So you gravitate towards the car stuff. Are you a fan of watch? Is because now we're starting to get into like there's actually the Daytona 500 things like that going to be on TV. Are you starting to get into that kind of stuff?
Yeah, a little bit, not so much. I really liked. I liked at the time the IndyCar and Formula One stuff, but it wasn't really part of my life. I did a lot of ice hockey growing up. I did a lot of football.
Okay.
Played football in college. I mean, that was my sports world.
Okay.
And that's what I was around a lot. Not until I was in California when we moved out here. And
when was that?
I moved out here in 1989.
89.
And, there was the K1 speed thing that was kind of cool to go to with some friends every now and again.
There's no K1 speed at 89.
No, not then. I mean, later on.
Really quick to go back for a second. When you were a kid, was your dad still racing or anything like that?
No. My dad was married at 18 years old.
Okay.
And had
old school lifestyle, married young.
He had 2 daughters, I think, by the time he was 19.
Okay. Wow.
And then they waited a few years, 5 for me. So, 25, he was full family, wife, the home, the whole thing, working as much as he could. And I know he was going to night school too, so there was no more racing.
But it was just he had an interest in cars like you did, all that kind of stuff.
Always, yeah. Always had an interest in cars. Him and his brother were always into cars.
Okay, gotcha.
So you kind of grew up in around the car game, no matter what.
It was his fault. Yeah, he got me in. We used to go to car shows when I was younger. It was kind of something to do. Mm-hmm. And I always loved the older cars. Always did.
Wow.
Always did.
Well, going back to when you were a munchkin there, and when you start coming out this way, as you say, growing up, racing wasn't a thing. Cars were a thing.
Right.
How old were you when you moved out this way? And did you guys do this as a family?
No, I moved out when I was 18.
Okay.
I was a little older in my class, but I moved out here when I was 18. Literally flew out here, put my 66 Pontiac convertible on a car carrier, loaded it up with all my stuff that you weren't supposed to do. Came out here to play football at Fullerton.
Really?
Yeah, at Fullerton, and never
college.
never stopped. Yeah.
So you get a college scholarship or what
No,
have you?
no.
Okay.
No. You don't get college scholarships. I didn't get a college scholarship.
So what? Why here instead of back east?
There was a couple of factors. My dad had a business associate partner out here that said, "Oh, he should come out to California if he's a football guy. If he can do it here, he can do it anywhere." And he offered to let me stay with him, and just kind of wanted to get out of New Jersey.
Okay.
Because it's one of those places. It's a great state. I loved it there. It's one of those places that you don't ever have to leave. There's a lot of opportunity and whatnot and things you can do and work there. And my dad really wanted me to broaden my horizons. My parents wanted me to, like, if you had the opportunity and the experience, go do it. Mm-hmm. So that was it. I came out here, just took the leap.
So you were halfway decent in football in high school.
I was okay.
Yeah,
I was okay.
What'd you play?
Everything.
What position?
I never left the field.
Yeah.
Was a lineman, an outside linebacker, an inside linebacker, a
As
tackle.
someone who played football in high school, you were more than halfway decent then, because I was off the field.
Yeah, no, kickoff, kick return. I mean, never,
anything and everything.
Yeah, never left the field.
So when you went to go play college, what did you play then?
I was going to be an inside linebacker, and that was the idea. And then what happened was, I think I'm trying to remember exactly, a while ago.
Enough hits on the head. Yeah.
Yeah,
A little foggy
enough hits on
memory.
the head. Yeah, they weren't called concussions back then. They were called, getting your bell rung.
Yeah, and that wasn't on the football field, so something else is going on.
A bunch of the fullbacks went down, injuries, this, whatever, and they said, "Hey, kid, do you want to score touchdowns?" And everybody they'll say your name. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. So then I went to become a fullback, and I learned real quickly that I don't know how to run. I could run, but I didn't know how to run. I learned that I didn't know how to catch a pass. I didn't know how to take a handoff. I didn't know anything.
So tackling was your thing.
It was, being, trying to be in the right position at the right time. It wasn't necessarily I had a ton of talent. I played the game a little bit smarter, I think. And I practiced my ass off to try to be okay. Got to fullback and ended up basically blocking for the guys that had talent. Mm-hmm. So, you get the ball 10, 15 times a season, not a game, a season. And, but it was a great experience. I loved it. Loved the guys that I met. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Don't move so well now because of it.
Yeah.
A lot of surgeries.
Okay.
So 5 or so. and stopped playing football when I ruptured my spleen in a game.
Oh, wow.
Didn't
As a college player,
yeah.
oh, wow.
Didn't know I ruptured it and just kept playing.
Oh, man.
And then you have that little thing where you bleed out, and then your heart kind of needs blood to pump. And
Yeah.
It's
minor details.
yeah, it's just so if you guys ever want to know, you need blood. To,
Hold on, I'm writing this down.
but, heart stopped, the whole CPR thing, whatever.
Holy
And
shnikes.
then
Right in the middle of the game? Or
no, it was
like
at the end of the game. So I thought I had the flu because it was raining outside. I just thought I was
okay.
sick. I'm sure I broke a rib when I got hit at the time, but yay, football. It's like normal.
Yeah.
And got on the bus to go. They were taking the team out afterwards because it was a Shriners game. It was one of those.
No, explain that. I don't know what that means.
A Shriner. It's like a bowl game. It was a bowl game.
Okay, gotcha.
So went out to go get something to eat and never woke up on the bus.
Wow.
Whoa.
And woke up in a hospital a day later.
So you guys finished the game. Did you win?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Hence the celebration, I suppose. So
we did.
you win the game as a team. You get on the bus to go celebrate, and you essentially fall asleep there. They do their work. They keep you not dead, and you wake up in a hospital.
Yeah.
Holy shnikes.
A day later, and then I stayed there for I think it was a week.
They flew him back to Jersey.
My parents were out
This is
here.
our
My parents
chance.
were out here already.
Yeah.
So they had moved out 2
Okay.
years after I did, and they got the phone call. Come back up to Northern California or wherever we were, see your kid. And my parents kind of knew when doctors said things because my dad was a volunteer. They were volunteer paramedics and firemen back east, and
Okay.
my mom was a nurse.
Oh, okay.
So
They had experience. Around
yeah,
stuff.
they walked in and they saw all the tubes and the machines and stuff, kind of keeping me going.
Yeah.
And
Prognosis
when I
was
look
tough?
when I look at them and I see the looks on their face and they look at me, I'm like, oh, this isn't good.
Right.
And then I think now, because I was 20 at that point,
Yeah.
Right.
19, 20, and now I have a son that's 19, and I would have been a mess. I don't even know how they drove up there.
Wow.
Right.
I mean,
You're just trying to play football, and
yeah.
bad things happen.
Yeah. So that was then.
So you didn't keep playing football after that then?
No, that was the end. that was definitely it.
Nikes.
Yeah, I kind of realized it was time to probably focus on that thing that we were at college for,
Oh, the Esquibel.
girls.
Yeah. Oh,
Nice.
that's not the school I was thinking of.
Yeah, so did that, got focused on, supposed to be a business major, but then they gave me accounting, and I said, yeah, this isn't going to work. Said, whatever I do, I said, no matter what I do, it's going to be a business, whether I'm, running a company, working for it, trying to sell something. And then I said, maybe there's another avenue here. No matter what I do, I got to either sell myself a product or a service.
Mm-hmm. Sales is your deal.
So I went in advertising
Oh, okay.
and really liked that. Met a lot of great people.
Advertising is something you do. You can learn in school.
Yeah, communications advertising.
Okay,
So it's
okay.
communications advertising, communications public relations.
I gotcha.
And then they have on advertising, they have a creative side, and then they have a management side. And I kind of
Married the two.
Went between the two at the thing. Did that. Got out of school. Got into this is going to be another great transition, into the computer business while I was a senior in college, because I was with this advertising thing. We had creatives, and we had the management side. Typically, the two never interacted with each other. I did. I liked kind of the creative side, even though I wasn't a creative, more so than the management side, because the management side was very regimented, and that was easy. And a lot of these guys back in the day, here's where I'm going to date myself, got these really cool Macintosh computers that
they
came
did.
out. They had the Apple Newton, which I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember that, before Palm Pilots even.
Oh yeah, Palm Pilot with a leather case.
I heard Macintosh. I've heard of Palm Pilots, but
And
Wait, you heard of Macintosh?
yeah.
Like you hadn't seen? Like I figured for sure
No,
you'd see the Macintosh with the big ass color thing on the back. That's what most people know.
no, I
well, the rainbow, the colors.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
Exactly.
was it like the four squares with the color, or
No,
was that something else?
That's Microsoft.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, maybe. Heard of Palm Pilots? Don't know what the hell they are.
So we
Give me my gateway computer back. That was my first one.
Nice. There you go.
so being
Cow thing they gave us with it.
being me, I wanted to kind of marry the two, and the advertising club, which used to be massive at Cal State Fullerton, went defunct. So we revamped it, and I was getting now these management guys and these creative guys all back together. And when I say it was massive, at the time that it went defunct, it had 9,000 members.
Wow, you see, it's advertising club.
Yeah, advertising club.
Wow.
Yeah, it was big.
What does the advertising club do?
Good question. What do they do? They didn't do a lot.
They didn't advertise enough to keep their club going.
They had a lot of money. They did a lot of events. They did ski trips. They did all kinds of stuff as a club, supporting and sponsoring things. But when we started it, we were really focusing on trying to get students jobs out of college.
Okay.
And because that's what everybody was in college going, I'm going to college to get a job.
Yeah.
Right.
Thinking like
it's the whole point.
I'm not supposed to get a degree. I'm supposed to get a job.
Right.
So a couple of us got together to partner with some of the advertising agencies in Orange County, which there was quite a few, and there was a lot of really good quality ones in LA as well. And basically give these kids internships working directly with the club, and then they would come speak at our club and also speak in classes and whatnot. So one of the things that we did with one of these ad agencies that was kind of cool was they had the BMW account for the local advertising, the local SoCal BMW dealers, and they were trying to come up with this campaign for the old car to the new BMW body style. And so they gave a little test to us students to like, hey, maybe you guys can like mock something up and we'll present it to BMW and just see what they think of what you guys did.
Right.
So
even if they don't say yes, it's still a cool
yeah,
opportunity.
it was just a cool thing to do. So we did this thing with BMW where we took a picture of the car, put it on the computer, we rendered it. And by the way, when you would render things on your computer back then, it wasn't like click the mouse and it's done. It was click the mouse, come back tomorrow, and see how far along it's gone.
Wow.
Right.
I believe it.
And
too.
so it looked like basically the old car stopped, the shocks compressed, and like the soul came out of the car. So we ghosted the car and it came up and then it flew up and then it was flying over the earth and you could see the earth and then it came back down and it was going into Europe and then Germany and then out of a factory the new body style came out and then the soul went in and the car looked like it took a breath.
Oh, interesting.
And the shocks came up. So we just did that on a computer with still images, but we made them look like they were animated. And it was just a little project. And we got credit for it in school and whatnot, so it was cool. And they presented it at this advertising agency in Orange County, and they said they were kind of upset, the agency, that we did a final project, like a final piece to present the client when they didn't ask us. They wanted storyboards, like drawings.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
And I'm like, they're mad at us. This is crazy. And so everybody else is, oh, we're so sorry. And I'm sitting there going, no, this is our storyboard. And then I started thinking, well, let's see what happens when they present this to the BMW guys. And the BMW guys they loved it and they were pissed that they went and did a final production piece without their approval. And I started thinking, we did this with still pictures basically in a week. We got something.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually went with a very similar ad, but they did higher production quality.
Right.
So I started a little business called Media Plus, where I hired my friends from college to render things and do storyboards for ad agencies and whatnot, and we would sell them.
Wow.
Neat.
While you're still in college? Or
In
right?
college, yeah,
Okay.
still in college.
And this is all your final year. This is
This is the final year.
Okay.
And
You started a business.
started a little business, I guess. Yeah. Not that it was official. I didn't do a filing or anything. I didn't know. I was
You get excess from the thing.
doing it out of a 2-bedroom University Village apartment, which was a government-funded kind of thing that we got 2 meals a day.
Gotcha.
And then we got a contract with a company called Ameritech, who heard about us doing their corporate training videos for computers. I know this is super exciting. And it was a lot of money back then.
Okay.
And we did it for them for a few months. And the guy's like, look, we're going to double our business with you guys. And at the time, it's like $30,000 a month as kids. It was like,
Holy shit.
because I need to come see your operation.
Right.
Well, our operation was a bunch of computers on a luggage rack that we would move around with fans on them.
Yeah.
And to keep them cool in a really crappy apartment. And when he saw it, he saw an opportunity, and then they offered to buy what we did and give us employment. And so that's where I went.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
And did that for a while, and then
So instead of going and finding a job, you literally created one.
kind of
Yeah.
by accident.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And
How long did you do that for?
a little over a year, and then I realized I'm not a good employee.
Okay.
I mean, I treat it like it was mine, and you can't do that when you're in a bigger
right.
company.
Right.
Yeah.
You may have started it, but you gave over the
Right.
keys.
Basically, yeah. And they were streaming video over ISDN lines. This is when the internet was kind of young.
Mm-hmm.
No fiber optic back
Yeah,
then.
no
buddy.
fiber optic, ISDN lines, ticketing kiosks. If anybody remembers, like the Wiz,
Oh, wow.
what were they? The electronic store, right? the other one. I forgot the name of it.
Radio Shack?
No, it wasn't Radio Shack. It was like a something city or something.
Circuit City.
Not Circuit. Maybe it was Circuit City. Whatever it was. They had these kiosks. You could buy tickets to events and concerts and skiing and whatnot.
I think Tower Records used to have
Tower
that.
Records, that was it.
Yeah, Tower Records
And
used to have
there was
that.
a monitor at the top playing video. So if you bought tickets to go skiing, an ad would come up for the restaurants up in the area.
Gotcha.
And then you would get coupons for ski rentals and stuff out of this kiosk. So this was their idea. And they were using our video stuff that we learned how to compress it to stream it
Oh, neat.
on this deal. So that was that program, which was pretty cool for a little while.
So you realize that you're not a good employee.
Well, I there was that, and they had a little trouble with the government. They were fundraising, and they weren't supposed to continue fundraising.
But luckily, you're not in ownership at that time.
Right. And when you have federal agents calling you in your office telling you to meet you down in the lobby.
Yeah, time to move on. So what do you do after this?
So my uncle, I knew was in the jewelry business and was always very successful, said he was going to go to Switzerland, and he was looking at some watches, and he had brought this little brand over, and I knew he was doing it on his own, and I basically begged him for a job.
Gotcha. How old are you at the time?
I don't know, 22, 3.
Is
Not soon after the whole football I mean, everything kind of really
Rock
happened
and
fast.
roll,
I always had
yeah.
a lot of little things going.
So at 22, 23, you ended up swapping over and hooking up with your uncle at that point.
Yeah, I think that was, maybe I was 25. It's right in the ballpark there.
Yeah.
The good years. Let's call them the good years.
That's a good way to put it.
And yeah, I mean, literally started from scratch. He taught me everything about, the ethics, this, that, and I mean, he'd been doing it basically his whole life.
Was he hesitant on hiring you?
Yes,
Why was that?
because he thought computers were the future, and why the hell would I want to get into watches?
So
Well,
he was
he was right.
he wasn't hesitant about getting you because of you. It was he didn't think this was going to be a good long-term move for you, and he
Yeah,
wanted
he said, computers are the future. That's where you need to go. That's where you'll make the most money. That's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be in this. This is a cutthroat business. It's a race to the bottom a lot of times. And I loved watches. I didn't know about expensive watches. I mean, I knew of the Rolexes and Cartiers and whatnot at the time, but I didn't know all the micro mechanics and everything that went into them. And the first trip we went to Switzerland, my mind just exploded.
Wow.
I mean, all the little details and micro engineering and everything that they put into these things was insane, absolutely insane. It just, I mean, the case works, the crystals, the hands, you have no idea. I mean, you would think it's just like stamped out and somebody puts it together, and you're not thinking about somebody taking the hand of a watch and polishing it on 4 different types of wheels to get the finish they want on one hand. And there's 2 on every watch.
wow.
And then they got to do all of them. And it was crazy.
And this is something, or this is an industry that you end up staying in for damn near 20 years, as you
Yes.
say. So, when you get into it, and obviously your uncle's doing it and stuff like that, and you start working your way through, what is the goal? What are you trying to do in this kind of industry of timepieces, as you say?
Right.
And what are some of the, I guess, neat things or cool things? Because this is an industry I know nothing about. Is there some stuff that you got a chance to do that was like, oh, wow, you'd never get a chance to do this with anything else?
So when I first started, the goal was to try to make some money.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Because the company that I left, I was getting paid pretty well for a young kid,
Gotcha.
like really well. And then I cut my salary to 1/8 of that
Aha.
to go do the watch thing.
Right.
Because my uncle said, you should be let's do it as a commission guy. You'll always make more as commission, and that way you set your own program.
Right.
You want to stay at a Holiday Inn, you stay at a Holiday Inn. You want to stay at the Ritz-Carlton, you stay at the Ritz-Carlton. It's up to you. It's your expenses.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And went out on the road, and I think my first year, after all was said and done, I made about $30,000.
Man.
And that wasn't good. But I was single. I didn't have really anybody to answer to. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have any of these things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Were you still in California?
I was still in California. I had moved down to Newport Beach with a friend because I was living with my parents after they moved out here. I moved back in with my parents because, better meal plan, better
Sure.
laundry, and
Better room rates.
better everything. And then we moved down to the beach, and was just traveling a lot. My uncle always said, if you work hard, it'll come. If you work hard, it'll come. If you're honest, it'll come. If you work hard, be honest, do everything you say you're going to do, even if it hurts here, it's going to pay off later. Mm-hmm. And I did, and it it was like the first year was a struggle. The second year was good. The third year, the first and second year started to pay off because as a commission guy, you're getting commission off of all the accounts, even when they reorder. And then you got a little bit bigger commission when you open somebody up because you had the expenses of going to see them the first couple times.
Right.
So then you had that little network built, and then I built up more.
So as long as the account is there, it's under your name as the initial person,
Correct.
And you carry that through.
Correct.
Got
and
it.
Just kept doing that, and then always servicing those accounts, going back to them, camping out at their stores if they needed help selling, working out problem solving, helping them make it better. Not just selling them a product, trying to grow their business with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that was the goal, and we did. Some was a little bit of money, they did really well, and I got good at it. And with anything, we got good at it, and the brand that we built up ended up buying it kind of back and having us run it as the distributors. And that's when we went from my uncle and I and probably 2 other salespeople to a sales force of 12, an office of 20 in Encino, and built it up to about 350 accounts across the country.
Man.
Selling really well. Got involved in a lot of things. This is kind of like my first real push into any serious racing thing because we had the opportunity, and it was through relationships from Lee Iacocca that he introduced us to Tony George, owner at that time of the IRL at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
And IRL was just having this issue where there was Kart and IRL.
Yeah,
They had split.
Yeah.
And so I guess the watch sponsor went with Kart. So there was an opportunity for Indy, and it was cheap in the days of talking about sponsorship. It was $500,000. We got the entire IRL and the Indy 500.
Man.
Now, that was great. We didn't have gobs of money, but I'm like, we can't say no. So my uncle did it, and it was great. Now you have to support it.
Right.
So we took it as an opportunity to take the retailers in every market that there was an IRL race, take their customers to the race, and you got to go through the paddocks and meet all the drivers and see how their pits work. And it was really, really eye-opening to see, Scott Goodyear, Alan Jr. was on the kart side, but Scott Pruitt, all these guys were just phenomenal. Just watching them talk. I mean, they would have a sunglass sponsor in their pit. They'd have a display. And it could be from the guy who does the tires to the crew chief to the principal to the race car driver. They knew something about the product and could tell you about it.
They were a salesperson.
Yeah, they're basically another salesperson again because that was their
Cool.
sponsor. So and I love that. And I'm like, this is exactly what we need to do with the brand.
And is this the first sporting event? Having been involved in sports as a kid, is this the first time that you're involved as a company with a sport and ends up being motorsports?
Sports, yeah. Because before that, it was always luxury. It was Miss USA pageant, Miss Universe. It was always high-end luxury things, yachting and things of this nature. But
so as you go, hey, Indy 500 and this, why were you like, we can't say no to this? What was it that you're like, hey, we got to do this?
the exposure.
Okay.
The critical mass.
So even if you weren't a motorsports fan, you still knew about the Indy 500.
I knew about the Indy 500. It was more exposure. It was the ability to take our customers, our retailers, and have them take their customers, people who buy from them, to do something they couldn't just do. Like that,
Right.
What they would do is you couldn't buy a ticket to go do.
Right.
Yeah.
So that made it special.
Yeah.
Go and experience something.
Yeah.
It was an experience, not just something you can go buy. Mm-hmm. And it gave the brand, even if we didn't sell anymore, the stores, no other brand was doing it for them
Right.
at that time. So I was more in the forefront of their mind, which meant, hey, when they were going to reorder something, they reordered. When they were going to pay a bill, I got paid.
Right.
So that was really kind of how it worked.
When was the first Indy 500 you went to then?
It was the 85th running. I don't know what year.
Okay.
You guys can do the math. Because we made a special watch for them. Mm-hmm. So we were giving watches away at these events, and we sponsored the Drivers Union, which was called CARA, which I think it was their charity, that the Drivers Union, all the drivers, that's NASCAR, Indy, IRL, they were all in this union.
Gotcha.
And so we did a lot of sponsorship there, which gave us a lot more exposure to other drivers. And then it went from, so I'll back up. We made a special watch for the Indy 500 and the IRL. So we made a timepiece that they gave to the winner, and it's 250 laps, right, at Indy, or 200?
It's 200, 500 miles, 200 laps.
However many laps, that's how many watches we made.
Oh, wow.
So it
Holy
was,
crap.
and they were solid gold, and it was a chunk. It was a chronograph. It's got an engine turn dial. And the 85th running, that winner got 85 of 200. The 86th running, they got 86 of 200.
So
that's kind of how we did it, and we had a contract for 3 years.
2001, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, just
there it was.
you looked it
I
up.
just checked it right
Gotcha.
now. Yeah.
So that's when that was.
Producer Derek on the
Good
fly
job,
there.
buddy. Good job.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Then we started to get involved with not just Kart, but the drivers.
Yeah.
Because
Personal sponsorships.
Al Unser Jr. took a real interest in the charity, the Cara Charities, and he did a lot for it. And a lot of people didn't know that at the time. He put a lot of time, energy, effort, and money, and his wife put a lot of time, energy, effort, and money into it. And so we helped him support that. We donated watches, time, energy, effort. And then I was going to a lot of kart races. And
Instead of IRL.
no, in addition to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like my first big kart race was here.
Okay.
Oh, neat.
And
at Auto Club.
yeah, and
California Speedway.
I'm
back
here at
then.
the Speedway,
Yeah.
and who was the trainer, the because they have trainers for the drivers, and there's the medical staff and everybody, the training guys, which I don't know, but they were very close with all the drivers. They were always involved with all the drivers, and I'm walking with Al Unser Jr., and we go in there, and who's the head trainer is the trainer from my football team.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And he's like the head of the training association for the United States, and they hired him for the races. He was part of that. I forgot what the team was called, the safety team. He's like, and he remembers me because I died while he was a trainer.
Oh, my gosh.
And we bonded a lot at that time. His name was Bill Chambers. And yeah, all of a sudden now, oh my God, we're going to be at all these races together. We saw each other all the time, and he got me involved with this guy named John Potter, who was the representative for all the drivers in the drivers union. He was like the big Don, the big king guy that could say anything to anybody and get a meeting with anybody at any time. And he loved me for some odd reason. I think he liked the whole East Coast Italian. So it was kind of cool because now I had another association other than just doing the watch thing and everybody either looking at me for a free watch
Right.
or money, And so then I really started getting more and more and more involved with these drivers and their families because I would go to their homes when I was in a market. Like when I was in New Mexico, we went to Al Unser's place, which was very cool. And all the charities they worked with, was there any other opportunities? And then we would do it with this person in that
Yeah,
marketplace.
the networking, yeah.
Same with Scott Pruitt, same with Scott Goodyear. I'm blanking on drivers' names. I apologize.
Well, out of curiosity, you get into the game like as an opportunity, and you still have other stuff to do as a company. So,
Oh yeah, I still have 11 salespeople. And
what I'm getting at here is that does the motorsport side of things start to take over your time a little bit more than all the other sales? Like, does it become a bigger priority?
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, you always had to juggle, and you had to, you're going to Indy for the race, for example.
Sure.
So you think that
You better
month
go
of
see
May.
customers also beforehand, and then get all your stuff done that you need to get done.
Right.
the time you put in was required. It wasn't like there's the IndyCar race. I really want to go see that track or whatever, or
No, actually,
because it was that big of a client, if you will.
the first time I went to the Indy 500, I was so disconnected from that there was actually a race going on,
Right.
Because it's a spectacle. I mean, if you've ever been,
I have not.
there's more people outside the track than the 500,000 people inside the track partying.
Right.
I've been to the track, but it was a BS tire test, and we went and saw the museum and whatnot inside. But I've never been there during a quote event. Like stands were empty and whatnot when I was there.
It was massive, and then going on the infield, realizing, and this is again from a marketing and sales kind of thing, I started realizing we're not selling to the people in the stands, because no offense to any of the fans that would go to these races, but the guy with the beers on the side of the helmet with the straws coming down, probably not in the market for a $10,000 to $20,000 watch at the
See,
time.
no,
right?
that's the Brickyard 400. That's the
Okay.
NASCAR one.
Well, IRL was a little Kart
Tony's
was
like,
very
there's a
different.
lot of beers in between these races, so I can't really remember which one I was
But
at.
then we started meeting the like the CEO Nabisco and the drug companies, all these big wigs in the infield, and there's
Right.
200,000 people in the infield, and they're bringing chefs in from all, and the chefs are making $250,000 a year,
Good
and I'm
golly.
like, these are all potential customers for me.
Absolutely.
Right.
So then I had the salespeople at the race just networking with everybody all the time, and the sales really. It was a great idea that my uncle had. I don't even know if he thought through the execution that we were going to get out of it, but he was really good at realizing that there's an opportunity as long as you make it work.
Right.
And that's kind of how I do things.
So you started getting ingrained in the motorsport stuff via the watch deal. How long does that tenure go? You said you had a 3-year contract with the Indy deal, but we're talking kart, which is different. So how long are you doing the watch/motorsport stuff?
3 years.
Oh, it only was for 3.
Yeah, because
whether
what
it be Indy or otherwise.
So what happened was, you know how they got back together?
They did.
And when they got back together, this little brand called Tag Heuer
Never heard of them.
paid $5 million, offered them $5 million for the same sponsorship.
Well, all
It was
right.
a little more than my $500,000.
Smidge. They just added a zero.
My $500,000 we got to pay over time. They all of it up front.
Wow.
So they're a big group, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. Made a lot of relations, and we still did a lot of other little charities with people and whatnot.
But the big one was now gone after those 3 years.
The big one was gone. I still stayed. I'm still friendly with like Scott Pruitt, if you know who Scott Pruitt is.
Oh, yeah.
He's really into wines now. He has his own vineyard.
Love to have him on the show,
I
actually.
you said
That'd be
he's
great.
really into Hawaiians now.
Hawaiians,
I'm
yes,
like,
Hawaiians.
Jesus.
Wine. Pruitt wines. And I asked him, again, a zillion years ago, hey, what if I wanted to drive? And he's like, at a racetrack? Yeah, at a racetrack. What if I want? What did I? He goes,
Not
well,
to the racetrack.
He goes, I could set something up for if you want to go to the track and drive. And I'm like, well, that'd be awesome. He goes, yeah, it's going to be about $4,000. I went, whoa, what? I mean, I was doing okay. I was, didn't have any other real expenses. And I said, yeah, maybe not. Whatever. So then time goes on with my now wife, Brenda, at the time. And for my birthday, she got me a Skip Barber deal at Laguna Seca.
Okay.
How old were you turning?
I don't know. I got married at 30, so it's sometime between that 25 and 30 range.
Okay.
I can go look up the pictures. Pictures are on Facebook somewhere.
I'll do
If you're really interested.
Yeah, if you're interested, go to Facebook, go to the history.
So you go as you said, Skip Barber.
Yeah, Skip Barber deal, and it was. I thought I was going up to drive like a non-downforce kind of
Standard
Indy car. It was a Cogsworth Ford, and Mazda was the big sponsor back then for Laguna Seca, and
Mazda.
no, we were in like Mazda coupes.
The Miatas?
No, not a Miata. It was a sedan of something, maybe a 3 or something, or I can't remember. Not a sedan.
And not the RX-8.
No, it was definitely not anything of performance. It was just a regular general car. And they let us go out around the track with a driver coach that did lead follow with us. And then they put us in an MX or Miata on a little wet skid patch. And this was the morning part of the day. And I'm like, when do we get to race?
Yeah.
And it was everything, the school, the learning, the 100% rule of the tires. I mean, it was like a whole, I never had any of this education. I mean, they were talking about differentials and how the wheels work and one's going to turn faster or slower, just everything everything now that actually we teach. But
This is your very first experience, though.
Real experience
with this stuff.
Beyond just getting behind and pushing the gas pedal down and turning to try to go fast.
You may have been around the racing stuff, but you hadn't done any of it yourself.
Right.
Not since the boardwalk days.
Not since the boardwalk days. But I was definitely, they set the hook there. And I can't remember, it was like a $1,300 or $2,000 class, whatever it was. We spent, we spent the night. It was an overnight deal, and you did it the next day. And then we got into the Miata cars, and they set up a rally course in the infield.
Okay.
And I just
like an autocross.
Autocross, sorry,
Yeah.
autocross. And I sucked up every bit of information that the coach was giving me, where to shift, the brake, turn, and I was just on it. And I did really well. Toot my own horn, but beat everybody in the whole group that day.
Right.
I'm sure none of them were under the age of 60 at the time.
Yeah.
But all these guys also raced. They like race vintage cars and whatnot.
Sure.
It was Laguna Seca. I love the track. And then we got into the non-downforce cars, and I was on it. And
It
then
sounds like a pretty cool program. Getting a
Yeah.
chance to kind
Oh,
of
it
work
was.
through all the different. I didn't think that they did all of that the same way like that. That's
And then so we get in those cars the next day, and it's 4-speed, and they're basically like you're going to be either be in third or fourth the whole time you're on track.
right.
And they took you out in groups, and then they finally broke up the fast group and the slower group, and then they had the fast group out, and I was lucky enough to be in the fast group, and then just loved it, like addicted to the track, addicted to what we were doing, loved the precision, loved having to hit the marks and where to shift, and to get the car to work better and the braking, and I loved every bit about it. And then, so that was over, and then you could do the downforce cars, which once you did that class, you could do the downforce cars, which I'm like, I got to do this. That's when the hook was set, and I tried to do some of the Mazda Miata racing, and that was fun.
What do you mean? So
Barbara had a
series that they run?
Yeah, series.
They had you're talking about the standard Skip Barber spec series that they have. Gotcha. So you went and did that.
I tried.
Okay.
Again, those same guys that I told you, I was in my 20s getting just destroyed and smoked by these guys out there. Arrive and drive car, you show up, you get, I wasn't good. I loved it.
Better football player?
But I wasn't good. I also wasn't, and I learned, it's just like any sport, you have to practice.
Yes.
You have to work on fundamentals and all of this, and that's why I was decent in football. I really mastered fundamentals. I was not the talented, amazing, muscle, whatever player, but I just really worked hard on fundamentals.
Right.
And that's what these guys did, but they had been doing it their whole lives.
Right. You just jumping in and going.
This was a fun thing for them now that they were doing.
Right.
Yeah, and some of them would teach me some things, and they were all nice, and everybody was cool about it, and I got better. But that was really kind of like my putting my toe in the water for, do I want to race? Realizing what commitment it was going to take, and I was traveling 200 days a year, so there was not, it just wasn't going to be an opportunity.
Yeah. So for a guy who, going back to the football thing, puts time in, practices, etc., whether you wanted to or not, the time was not available for you to go pull it off.
No, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
I was too committed. I was really married to the job.
Yeah.
I had too many salespeople that were relying on what we did. Brands in Europe were relying on what we did. It was the only way to make it successful was to be present. The only way to be present was you got to be in Dallas, you got to be in Miami,
Let's go.
You got to be in Sioux City, Iowa, you got to be in Fargo, you got to be in New York, you got to be in Vegas, you got to be
go.
You're going.
Yeah. Is there a lot of watches sold in Fargo?
You would think not, but there's a lot. I can tell you that my number 2 account in the country, if they're ever going to listen to this, Sioux City, Iowa.
All right. I wouldn't have guessed.
Number 2 was in Vegas.
Number 2 was
the win.
Interesting.
Yeah,
well,
so
that makes sense.
Just to give you an idea of, there's a lot of disposable income, so people made a lot of money there, and houses were not expensive.
So we got time. We got money for watches.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, people who are wealthy that live in these areas, where do they go and buy their expensive stuff? They have to go somewhere.
Aha.
So they have to leave. Well, now it was there.
Interesting.
In their backyard, and they got exposed to it, and
there you go.
They bought more of it.
So you do the car racing thing just enough to realize that I really like this. This is pretty damn cool. No, I'm not a natural talent. No, I can't kill it right out of the gate, and I damn sure don't have the time for it. But I do really like it.
And I know if I'm going to try something, I have a problem because I'm not going to try.
Aha.
I'm all in.
Okay.
Right. I am
but
all in.
But you know that about yourself.
Yeah,
and
I know
so you
that.
prevent yourself from going more than just the Esquibel here.
Yeah, I'm all in.
Gotcha.
It's not going to be a half thing where I'm going to be struggling.
Right.
Because I won't enjoy it.
Right.
I just won't enjoy it.
So as you say, you go through this thing, you decide this is not going to be your deal, and you're doing the watch deal. But as it's definitely something that you're like, I like this a lot. As you get down the lane a little bit, what makes you make you're doing the watch thing, what makes you make the switch away from, because as you say, you retired from the watch thing, and then afterwards you end up doing karting.
Yeah.
Kind of bridge the gap maybe a little bit between the end of the watch years, if you will, to the not.
Yeah, so watches, basically the luxury business got phenomenal. It got huge here in the States. There was the subprime mortgage industry. People were printing money. It was going crazy. We went to the .com thing, and you could sell anything to anybody. And these guys, everybody wanted to have something luxury. So we were making a pretty good living. And the big brands were not dumb. They saw all of this, and they're like, well, we don't want to lose market share to these little brands, so we're just going to buy them. So they started buying them up. So then, I was no more my salespeople weren't being dynamic. We weren't really growing anything. It was the big brands would come in and tell a store, oh, okay, well, you'll carry our 7 brands that we own, and if you want to carry another one, you need to ask us permission. And they did what the big brands told them, because the big brands generated more of their business than I did.
Yeah.
And it just really started to go down, and I even started focusing more on real niche, small, low production brands, things that were like, they made 10,000 watches a year, which is not a lot. for the globe. And
Right.
that was good for a little bit. But again, it's still, you go to a store and they're like, why should we buy your stuff for $100,000 when we can go buy 5 Rolexes that we're going to sell in a week, and it's going to take a year to sell your stuff.
Right.
So
Volume, yeah.
I could just kind of see where it was going. We did some distribution of other things, wall clocks, luxury wall clocks, things like that. But I was done traveling 200 plus days a year. My kids were of that age. I really liked spending time with them. We had done okay. And I'm like, Alex had started doing the SoCal Sprinter stuff at Adams.
Well, okay, so let's back up a smidge there. So to give us an idea on where we're at in the timeline, you're doing the watch thing. The pull start cart becomes a thing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the two start to kind of meld a little bit. The end of the watch thing, the beginning of the karting deal, about very, very similar times.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being in Times Square, like on the phone talking with the guys at Adams going, we just don't have a motor. I'm watching Race Monitor on one phone. And
So Grandpa and Alex are at the racetrack, and you're
Basically.
still selling watches.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, knowing who you are a little bit now, it's like not a huge fan of the kid and everybody else going and doing this thing, and you're still doing this over here.
I mean, yeah, I wasn't, but I also knew how much he loved it.
Yeah.
And to find something that, the kid loves, I wasn't going to not make it happen.
But then not being there.
Yeah,
is
not
what-
being there.
Yeah,
It's
that's the part.
It killed me. But
That's the part.
At the time, there was a guy named Nick who was at Adams, and he would help out Alex a ton.
Right. Nick
So
Strasbaugh, right?
yeah, Nick Strasbaugh. So I felt really comfortable about that.
Gotcha.
And it was cool.
So he gets your dad gets him the go-kart. Thanks a lot. And it starts the whole thing.
Yeah.
But they start doing the racing thing. You're doing the work thing. He's starting to get into racing, and he's, as you say, he won't shut up. Like, this is obviously clicked, and you're going to foster that. He goes racing a little bit, and he starts getting his feet wet. How long of this, he's racing, you're working, you're not a part of the game as much? How long does that go for? Before you go, no, I'm doing this.
A little over a year.
Not long.
Maybe 2 years.
Okay.
Because I remember the first year.
He's in cadets at this point.
Yeah, the first year we were at Adams 3 days a week, but never raced for a year. Mm-hmm. I never changed the gear, never changed the chain unless it broke.
Right.
We're just cutting laps.
Just cutting laps, buying used tires from Adams, throwing them on the go-kart, just doing that. And then I met some guys at the track that had their names on their side pods.
Oh, they're
so
in.
I could remember their names.
Right.
Because if you told me, I was in sales, I couldn't remember a name. But visually, if I saw it, I could remember it. And there was this guy named Stevens. His son was Bryce. Mm-hmm. Dad's name was Eric. So I could always remember it. And he seemed to always have these little tools and everything to get stuff done that I didn't have. And they started coming to the track more. But they raced cadet in this SoCal Sprinter Series. And, I forgot who became the president at the time. He still races here in Masters.
Bowers?
Bowers.
Yeah. There we go.
He was just going to become the president. And I said, we're looking for a place to maybe race because we haven't started racing yet.
Right.
So whatever year that was. And he says, well, we've got this club. It's going to be fun. It's going to be cool. All right, let's do it.
Out of curiosity, so you guys are running at Adams, kid's getting his feet wet, but you're not changing anything. It's not that you guys don't have the means to change anything. So what was the thought process there?
I didn't know.
Oh, it was just flat out lack of knowledge.
Yeah, change the spark plug when it gets dirty. Basically didn't change anything. That's when, again, then I realized maybe we need some driver coaching. We need some help, whatnot. Then I went to the guys at Adams because that's all I knew.
Sure.
And Troy, I think, was the first person that we ever had any involvement with coaching Troy Adams. And then Nick was working there, so I saw him working with some other kids. He started working with the boy, coaching him. And actually, my other son started driving, too. I have a younger son. But he plays ice hockey. He wasn't really into the driving thing. And so we started going out to the track again, our 2 to 3 days a week. And it was, now we weren't down on the lower grid. We were in the upper grid, if you know Adams, in the back. And that's where they were going from. And Nick was coaching him. And then he started running with the pack. And then he started, running up front. And then he was getting better and better.
Are we
and
changing
better.
stuff at this point? Because we got that.
Oh, yeah, no, now the gear's changing.
We got the
motor's
Burrell off of Craigslist.
The motor's getting rebuilt, which I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
And then, doing some things to the chassis, like, Nick's like, well, you might want to buy this, this, and this. That way you can do some tuning.
So how did that go?
Okay.
So you see Nick's on the sidelines. He's working with other kids and whatnot. Are you go, hey, Nick, do you want to not just coach, but do you want to tune for my, like, is Nick your guy?
No,
then
he
at
wasn't,
the
because he
time?
worked for the track.
Aha.
He worked for the track.
Okay.
What happened was, and I found out Nick was a Ducks fan, an Anaheim Ducks fan. He's a big hockey fan. And I had always grown up playing hockey, and I was doing adult league stuff at the rinks when I was in town, skating with some guys. And I did, again, with the whole charity element, because I was donating watches and whatnot, I was able to get a team-signed Anaheim Ducks jersey.
Oh, wow.
I'm a fan. I'm just not that big of a fan. So I knew he was. And so I said, hey, are you interested in an 07 team-signed Ducks jerseys? They won the Stanley Cup. He's like, absolutely. I said, well, how many coaching sessions
Oh, I love it.
can I get for this jersey? And it was a lot. That's really how it all
Okay.
turned the corner.
Okay.
So I kind of blame the Anaheim Ducks for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Full circle.
And Nick not selling himself high enough.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, right.
He did okay. He worked really. I mean, they worked really well together. It was amazing. He progressed. I mean, he finally had somebody coaching him that wasn't me. Telling him, you're doing it wrong. What am I doing wrong? I don't know. You're doing it wrong.
There's always
You're probably not supposed to slide, is what I used to say.
I
There's
see
always
other
the-
people going faster than you, which
Yeah.
means you must be doing it wrong.
There's always the dad, what do you know mentality, right? It's
Yeah.
always hard to listen to the parent.
And I never pretended to know.
Right. Right.
I was never the guy going like, okay, I know a little bit, so I know everything. Mm-hmm. Just from being involved in sports for so long, I mean, you don't know.
Right.
Yeah. There's always somebody who knows more, or there's maybe a different way to approach it. And yeah, so we started getting better and better and better. And we're still cadets. Now we're going our second year in cadets. As you guys know, my son is tall.
He
And
is
he
now.
had a little growth spurt then. He wouldn't even fit in a cadet cart, but he was still way too young to move up.
Right.
So we found one of these 1010 chassis to run cadet, which is not a benefit, by the way. And we did a whole nother year of that.
Still at SoCal.
Yeah, at
SoCal Sprinters at Adams.
yeah. Then I think he put his toe in the water at an IKF race in KPV that they did at Adams, and I think he got third or something. So it was like,
Holy shnikes.
I'm like, man, now we can go do that crazy, amazing race over at Cal Speed, that LAKC, which is like, that's the top. I mean, at that time,
at that time, it was large.
Yeah,
there was,
for sure.
For me, that was like, I don't even want to go there because I'm scared, to take the kid there. And still doing the watch thing. But it's really started to tailor off because I could see kind of the writing on the wall, the distribution thing. I was going through a thing at that point with my partners to buy me out.
Aha.
So
You were already like, I want to
kind
not
of
do
checked
this
out.
anymore.
I was kind of checked out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of racing to do.
Yeah. So when that all transpired, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just focus on the racing thing with my son now, learn as much as I can because we're spending some great time together. And I kind of like the people at the track. Everybody's very, helpful and cool, and people are trying to help each other out. I liked that. Mm-hmm. Again, we did a whole nother season there, and it was now going to be time to start to think about junior, which I went and bought a bunch of KPVs because we were moving up to junior. So I had like 4 KPVs. I was that guy. Like, we got to have a good engine. We want to have practice motors, this, that, and the other. And then they announced it was going to PRD.
Classic.
So, yeah.
The same thing happened to my dad when I was a kid, except for it was tires.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Bought a bunch.
he bought a bunch of tires, and then they switched tire brands. He's like, and we did not have money to buy a bunch of tires,
Right.
but he got a deal.
That was
on
a year
them.
budget.
And now I think he figured out why he got a deal on them after that. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
better than motors, mind you, but
by the way, this is during the Buddy Rice karting thing.
Yeah.
That was like the kids used to look at that. Oh, we want to be on the Buddy Rice team, and this was the thing to be on. And they looked professional, and
whole bit.
it was kind of cool. So we still did our SoCal Sprinters thing, and I used to let him come here and only do the LAKC practice day
Aha.
Okay.
for an entire year, all 9, whatever. I think it was 9.
9, yeah.
9 series. So he only did the practice day, never raced. He was in a PRD energy cart.
Okay.
That was like, I can't remember who. I think I bought it from Too Wild, that they had a customer that traded it in.
Oh, gotcha.
But then we came to find out it was 32 mil,
Stiff.
massive
Yeah.
frame, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, oh, great, it won't bend. Perfect.
It'll
Right,
last
This is
long.
the
yeah.
best thing ever. I'm a genius. Nobody's thought of this.
Yeah.
So he literally practiced on that one whole season. I wouldn't let him race here. People are like, oh, you got to let him race. He's on pace. He's on. I go, no, I don't want him out on track. He's not smart enough yet. He hasn't had enough experience.
What was your marker? What you talk about not smart enough, not enough experience? What were you looking for as a dad at that point for him to move on?
Fundamentals. We had, being in sports my whole life, the key was master the fundamentals. If you have talent, you have talent. Okay? Talent comes in when you're in a weird situation. Master your fundamentals. You may not be the best at all of them, but work on them. Always make them great. There's guys that master, let's say there's 10 fundamentals in something. They master 4, and they're at the top of their game. The other ones they're good at. There's some guys that are really good at only one thing. But we only ever worked on fundamentals. Always, always, always.
What kind of fundamentals were you looking for? Like, to you, what are the fundamentals here that Munchkin's looking for?
So, I mean, you start with everything, like the position of your hands on the steering wheel for a fundamental. Understanding how the tires work is a fundamental on a go-kart. You can't just be on the throttle and then turn the wheel and just wait and expect, something to happen.
Right, got to be able to feel that it's pushing or sliding.
To know what you're supposed to be doing as a fundamental and know how your machine is supposed to be reacting. Before I start teaching you how to send it in on somebody and pass.
Right.
Before I start teaching you how to over-under, quote-unquote,
right.
or a race start, or all these things. So that's what we were doing at the real.
And as a non-karter, how are you picking up these fundamentals to make sure he's on the same page?
Literally becoming a student of the sport.
Okay.
Yeah. Sucking up every piece of information, knowledge that I could. And, still, I was working real closely with Nick, still a lot at Adams. Nick was a wealth of knowledge. Because when he raced when he was younger, it wasn't like there was a lot of online stuff.
Oh, right.
He would tell me, he was like, when that magazine came out, when Go Racing came out, he goes, you would read it from cover to cover, and he would suck up every bit of thing. And I knew, at night he would tweak on stuff and just try to he loves information, information, and he was really good at processing it back out on the track. And I was kind of the same way, so I appreciated that. But I really wanted to become more of a student of racing and the sport.
So while Alex is out on course, cutting laps and learning behind the wheel, you're doing as much of that off course.
I'm watching him like a hawk, and I'm not just watching him. I'm watching the kids that I know are good.
Asking questions, talking to other people.
Yeah, talking to other people, trying to get as much information as I can. Again, not professing I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Just getting everything I could. So we did that whole practice season here.
Right.
And then I'm like, all right, next year we're going to do LAKC. That's it. We're moving up.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to go to juniors. Same chassis, by the way.
What's it, 32?
It's
It'll
32.
last.
You're buying
Perfect.
smart. Yeah.
Perfect.
Get 8 years out of it.
And at that time, I think Nick had just left or was about to leave Adams, and didn't know what he was doing. He was working for people at their shops, helping them out. He was helping me out. He would come to my house and work on stuff. We had this crazy idea of like, oh, he's got a couple drivers. I have my son, and I got the trailer at the time. Maybe if we just set some easy ups up together and just split the cost of like food with these guys. We'll have a little pit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's how it started.
Oh, wow.
And me being a distributor, I don't like to not have something. So it got to the point where I had like a bunch of energy parts because for that go-kart. Mm-hmm. And then if we had somebody under the tent on something else, I'm like, oh, if they're going to keep pitting with us, maybe I should have
a few of
a
their
steering
parts,
shaft or this or that. And,
right.
And that's really how it kind of progressed more and more and more and more. And then...
Were you still doing the watch thing?
No.
Okay, so...
No, it was almost all done at that point.
So you stopped doing the watch deal maybe during that year of testing out here at Cal Speed, somewhere right in there?
Yeah, basically. No, it was
very close.
It was the next year. The year we decided to go full on LAKC,
right.
It was basically almost all
So you're
done.
like, hey, I've got the time now.
Right.
Now we're going to go racing, but you don't have team thoughts yet. This is just, hey, we're already going to go do this. Let's do this as a group. You know things. I have a trailer. Let's do this thing together, and go from there.
I was like, I'll put in the energy, the work, the effort, basically the logistics side of everything, and that's kind of how it went.
But not as you're not thinking of a team.
No, I wasn't really thinking of a team at that time.
It sounded like kind of an island of misfits, just people that wanted to be in the same tent.
And because we ended up pitting with other teams at some point, we ended up getting on other material. Like we went on Ricardo's, and I pitted with Phil.
That's right.
Phil Giebler.
As a group?
No.
Oh, just as yourselves?
Just as my son.
Interesting.
Yeah, that happened. But then when we would come to the local races, it was like our tents in our stuff, but at the pro kart stuff, I would pit with the team that I wanted the support from that supported that product.
So you go out of the gate and you do LAKC. We're going to do LAKC. You do the whole but you also do other events at the same time.
The year later, a year.
So you do a full year of just your, to Derek's point, Island of Misfits.
Yeah.
Just the group of you guys doing LAKC. Well, let's talk about that right out of the gate. You've taken the time to have Alex do SoCal Sprinters, a lot of practice out here. You're learning. This isn't the Alex Siragusa show, but how does that progression happen, not just for him, but also for yourself? As you start, as you say, you went to regional after that, but you got to feel pretty confident in your guys' ability to having learned things and also some skill.
The key was, and again, I know I just keep saying this word, fundamentals. What would happen was we would go out, we practiced a lot. I mean, we were here a lot. Mm-hmm. And just through networking, whatnot, even some of Nick's relationships and my son making friends with people, we always invited people out to the track to practice with us. And we would set up a go-kart and they'd go out and like it, not like it, whatnot. But that progressed really we started having people under our tent that were never here before. They never raced before. And they started doing okay. They're running mid-pack, racing okay, because we really, really I focused on the fundamentals of racing. I had the back with Nick basically on setup, tuning, how things should be, what we should have, everything, all of that stuff. And my big thing was the coaching was a fundamental. I saw some people that they would come to the track, they'd go fast, but they were never taught how. They just could do it.
Gotcha, yeah.
And the more of these quote-unquote nobodies would start coming under the tent, and more people were going better and better and better, people were looking at us like, who are these guys?
Right.
And we still weren't even really officially a team yet. I had every mishmash of go-kart under the tent.
This is at the local races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what started to happen was, because my son had a Ricardo, and I had the most parts for it, when another used one came available, the other kid under the tent got a Ricardo. Then I think at one point we had 5 or 6 of them under the tent, running in juniors and I think senior. And we were pretty competitive. And now we were going to make it official. Like, this is now the 3rd year. Here, we're going to make it official. We're going to be a team. And I remember the guys at LAKC said, well, you're not a team. You're not a company. You're not a brand. You're not anything affiliated with karting. To be a team, you need to have something. And
is this for their team championship they were doing at the time?
Yeah, the team championship.
Right. And so you can't just be the Island of Misfits. Could have been the name.
Right.
I can't even remember how the introduction happened or how it started, but the guys from Free M, I just remember them measuring the kids in the tent, like giving them quotes on suits and stuff.
Yeah.
And I started talking with the guy, and he was really struggling on importing and bringing stuff into the country, and I had done a ton of that.
Right.
And I helped him out with I'm like, oh, well, here's the codes you need. This is what you need to do. Bring stuff in. And long story short, we became Team Free M.
Oh, really?
So the first year we were Team Free M. And we went out of the gate, and Nick had guys that had been working with him for a long time. We had cadets. We had juniors. I can't even remember if we had a senior or not at the time.
I don't think they cared it was like 4 drivers on your team.
Yes.
They didn't care what class or whatever, and they pulled your points together.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you could switch one driver at some point of the season. You had the ability to change a driver out.
Swap it, like,
and you'd
so
lose
someone,
but you'd lose the points.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, let's say you got a driver, he starts the first 2 races, but then quits or whatever.
Right.
You could plug somebody else in. Yeah.
So here we are, LAKC, we're Team Free M. Everybody's pretty much on the same go-kart under the tent. We had canopies that matched. We had banners that said Free M on them, and I had Free M product under the tent. And we won the team championship our first year out of the gate. And we were like, for us, that was like,
what drivers
huge.
did you have? Do you remember the 4 drivers that were accumulating the points?
I feel like it was Alex and Bryce for sure.
I'm pretty sure Bryce was there. I think I can't remember if I had Brendan Kramer or not yet at that point. Little Logan Ainsworth. I call him Little. Maybe he's big now.
Right, yeah.
Gosh, who were the others?
He might have been in kid karts at the time.
He I think
Definitely
he was. I think he was
yeah.
for sure. Kid karts.
But you guys started out as Team Free M.
Right.
And you win the team championship, and I would assume did pretty decent in the individual classes as well.
Yeah, we did. It was just a perfect, everybody did dang good, so those points accumulate, and it was,
right.
and for us that was a big deal because at that point, Buddy Rice karting had gone away. Seth started his thing, 2 years before or a year before. Perry, I think Perry, Freck, and all those guys were all with Buddy Rice at the time. And those guys were like, for me, that was like, geez, these guys know what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah. And your little hodgepodge there as it started.
We won this team championship. And we're like, woo, we must have done something right or just got lucky. And either way, whatever, we got this big trophy.
Right.
So then we do it again. We're going now the next year. And the guys from Free M introduced me to these guys with this fluorescent go-kart called Comp Kart.
Indeed.
Which I'm like, Comp Kart's not really an original name, but okay.
Do we remember roughly what year that is?
No. I'm horrible with years, man.
17?
Horrible. It had to be
No,
16.
it's going to be older than that.
I think.
Maybe before that because of when LAKC was still LAKC and stuff like that. Sorry, LAKC still had Latore.
Yeah, it was the other LAKC.
right.
Yeah.
So I just
That's
remember.
how I remember it.
I had talked to them on the phone, and there was this kid, not kid, but I knew who Dante was beforehand because we pitted under the tent with Andy with us. I think it was Buttonwillow was the first time I saw the go-kart in person, and I'm like, holy crap, a highlighter exploded. What the hell?
Yeah. I loved it when it came out.
And Dante was driving it, and it was kind of cool, and whatever, it was different.
Yeah.
And he had raves to say about it. The kart worked, and because I guess everybody had been down the road of people trying things. I met them. We talked. They liked the business aspect of what I literally gave them a forecast and a projection and my financials, and they're like, what is all this for?
Well, let's back up. So you went into that next year going, well, I should actually say this. When you won that team championship as Team Free M, you guys were Team Free M as the team championship, stuff like that. But were you already a, quote, business team, the whole McGill at this point?
No, I was running everything through my distribution company.
Okay.
I still had the legal entity of the distribution company.
But then when you go to the next year, are you thinking we actually can do this thing?
I basically said to myself, you know what? I'm going to take this challenge on because everybody goes, there's no money in karting. There's no money in karting. There's no money in karting. By the way, there's no money in karting.
They were not wrong.
It's a lot of work to make it, but it's there. It's a lot of work. I took it as a challenge. I said, you know what? I can inventory this stuff. I love the coaching side of it. I love being involved. Like I said, the motorsports thing, the hook was set. It was getting to play with, toys,
right.
and enjoy it and just wake up in the morning and want to go do it. And it was originally maybe it was something new and different. But here we are. We're still doing it. We still love it.
Right.
And I said, the next year I had no interest in getting a go-kart brand really at the time. I just thought we would sell parts and supply service. That was it. Motors, all this. It was the furthest thing from my brain.
So you get introduced to the J3 guys.
J3s, yeah.
And Comcart. As you say, you're not looking for it, but it sounds like you present them all the information, and they think that's not such a bad idea for this essentially startup program.
I told them, why me? Don't you want to be with people who know what they're doing on the track? They said, well, we really like the business side of it, and you seem to have aligned yourself with some decent people and that know what they're doing, and yeah, we want to do it. I'm like, okay.
Is that the start of Formula Works?
That's the start of Formula Works.
So
yeah.
Formula Works starts with the
a little bit before that. We came up with the name and everything with Formula Works beforehand.
And what is Formula Works? What is the team name there?
So again, with the coaching thing that I had told you about, my thing with the fundamentals was I always wanted to have. Did I want to put my name on the front of the tent or whatever? Yeah, but any product, anything that I associated myself with in all those luxury goods, they would come up with a name based on something that meant something with either in the company or within the product or the brand or its history or heritage or what they do. And not having the history and heritage, I'm like, where do we go?
Right.
What we were doing was it seemed to work every time we would work with these drivers and really push fundamentals. Push fundamentals. It worked for them. They got better. I wouldn't say they're the best in the world, but they got better.
Right.
And it was the only thing that was working for us. And I'm like, we've really got a formula here. That's working for us. Bing. Formula Works.
Gotcha.
And that's where it came from.
Nice.
And it's cheaper to put on shirts than Fundamental Works.
Yeah.
Basically fundamental.
And
And I
it
can't
rolls-
spell fundamental, so
It rolls off the tongue better.
yeah.
that's where Formula Works came from.
All right, so you end up hooking up with Comp Kart with the birth of Formula Works all at the same time. What was the thought process at that point? Obviously, you've already you had the team, but now we're going all in on karting. You were joking about there's no money in karting, things like that. So
Right.
now it's a proper karting, quote, team and business.
It's close to proper, but it was.
Did you have shirts?
We did not have shirts.
Oh,
No.
you're right. It's not there yet.
I had a logo.
Oh, we're close.
We had drivers, and actually, we had the logo. We had the colors on the logo and everything before we met Comp Kart, and the colors just happened to be very similar.
Oh, wow.
So met J3. The idea was, we'll try to sell some go-karts here to our drivers and see what comes of that.
Were you the beginning of the West Coast side of
Yes.
Comp Kart? Okay.
Yeah.
Because obviously, for those that don't know, they're based out of Pennsylvania.
And I knew they had some success. I heard this kid Malukas ran it in Europe in junior and won the first year they put the car on the track, and it was wow.
Right.
Okay, the thing must be impressive. I don't know
Right.
anything about it, but it must be impressive. So then with the practice days and the testing, and then we had Dante Yu running it in junior for them. He was a factory sponsored guy. Mm-hmm. It just helped out everything. And we had a big junior program, and everybody just slowly got on the product.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is it an overnight scenario where everybody bumps off what they were running before the Ricardos or otherwise, or was it an overnight everybody switches?
No, it wasn't. Definitely was not an
Slowly.
overnight thing. It was
Okay.
It was better part of a year
Yeah.
before we started doing any kind of serious business with them. I would say the first year we did, 15, 18 go-karts.
Did you set this up pretty late in the year where you guys won the championship? It was pretty late in the year you make the deal, and then going into the next year, everybody still has their equipment from the previous year, right?
Yeah, so we set it up. I can tell you exactly when. It was in July in Phoenix when there was a Pro Tour race, is literally where we signed the paperwork that we were going to do it.
Oh, wow.
But nothing came until after Supernats that year.
Gotcha.
And we didn't really do a lot of product. But what was cool was we not only had consistency with the product under the tent instead of me trying to figure, okay, this guy needs to be narrower, this guy wider, this guy's soft seat, hard seat, that all these things with the other products we had under the tent. Now we had a consistent package that really had a big window and a good starting point. Mm-hmm. And it worked really well here, which is the backyard of where most of our racing was done.
Right.
Or is done. And people started seeing results, looking in from outside.
Right.
And that really wasn't my focus wasn't to get people to come over from other places. I was always looking at bringing people to the track from new places. Mm-hmm. So
Right.
most of the drivers we had were either people that came to do your guys' rental karts because we were here so much.
Right.
And they wanted to get into karting, or people that we met at Adams, or just the kids and talking to other kids to come out and race.
Right.
And I would tell them, okay, you want to race? Great. It's going to be 6 months before we even think about doing a club race.
Kind of going back to the get some seat time.
And
Right.
Just
Learn
how
the
you started
fundamentals.
off with Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little more truncated.
And some people liked it and some people didn't, and that's okay.
Literally just had that conversation yesterday with the dad.
Yeah.
Brought his kid out here to just talk to us about rentals and stuff, but they just started. I've done K1 for about a year, and the kid's tiny. He's 80 pounds or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And he's kicking everyone's ass, I guess, or whatever. And dad's like, "Hey, I want to do these for about 6 months and go buy a cart and go racing." And I'm like, "You're gonna probably hear it from some other teams. I'm gonna tell you now. I'm like, no one's gonna probably let you go race right away, man." And then that was what I told him: do the ride and drive series, blah blah blah. I'm like, don't be in a rush to go race. Just go drive.
Learn some stuff. Yeah.
But it just there's more to be said about throwing too much at, especially we got to remember it's all a kid, right? Throwing too much at the kid, but compared to just taking it easy at first.
Yeah, they get let down. I mean, they feel like they let everybody down, and then if they really don't have the financial wherewithal and they're struggling to do it, I've seen some kids, they feel so guilty. They're like, "Oh, my dad just spent $1 zillion on whatever, and I just bent the axle and the wheel, and we don't even know how we're going to pay for that." And my heart breaks for him. I just don't want him to. I don't want him to get to that situation. Let's learn how to drive first. Let's learn all of how we should be. Then we'll start learning on, how to do a fast lap,
Right.
or where we pass, how we don't pass. how we start, how we don't start
Right.
a race before we go figure out how to start a race on race day.
Yeah, all those fundamentals you were talking about earlier. Yeah,
And I've seen kids they can qualify on pole, and then they never were on pole before.
yeah,
Right,
Oh
yeah.
They didn't know what they have no idea, and I'm sure everybody's been there at one time or another, but I don't want to put them in that situation.
Everybody's had their front row for the first time, maybe even
Right.
the second time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that was kind of how we were building it. But with the J3 thing, what worked out really well is then I had the support of J3
Right.
because my goal was to basically get them involved also with what we were doing. Because I wanted, even when we did the watch thing, it wasn't like we just distributed a watch for somebody. I always made the brands be involved. And they loved it. It was great. John Giacomelli was coming out here, and we were, I was going out to the national races. We would go to the national races where they were, and we'd pit with them, bring some drivers. And it was kind of a win-win situation because, how many people could have the people who make the go-kart under their tent?
Right.
You
Absolutely.
know, and they're successful. They're a successful organization. They were one of the big ones back in the day that were doing things that nobody else was doing, and they were huge with Cosmic.
Yes.
Cosmic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so their pedigree was proven,
Yeah.
and we just got better and better and better because of it. And me, I'm a sponge. I'm trying to suck everything that I can as far as knowledge to translate it, because sometimes I would see how people would talk to drivers, and being in many, many sports and coaches and businesses and whatnot, sometimes if the same thing is said from a different person or a different wording,
Agreed,
it translates. And where this comes from is I used to say things to my son,
100%. There it is.
and somebody else would say the same exact thing in a
Yep.
different wording. He would go, "Oh, that makes perfect sense."
We've
Yeah.
seen that so many times. I know it's happened with both Derek and I as coaches. Is you can say something that the dad just got done saying, or the mom just got done saying,
Right.
and oh yeah, no, for sure. Your dad just said that, right? Well, yeah, who doesn't know what he's talking about?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And then we grew that. We were pretty successful with their products. I mean, we did it for 4 years, going almost 5 years, doing 40, 50 go-karts a year with them.
What was the thought process? Again, you start the team up. You're going to do the whole business thing. You wanted to sell product and these kind of deals, but
Right.
what was the overarching goal? What was the point of you getting into originally support the kid and things like that and do racing? But it's obviously changed into a business and things like that. So what was your goal? You said you shared the numbers, the whole thing. You had a business plan. There was a point. There was a goal. And what was that goal?
So when we started with J3, I saw it as a distribution opportunity because they had me as their distributor for the Western United States. So, okay, now I've got a go-kart that it's good. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. I have the ability to sell half of the country, basically the West, which is when you start realizing how much racing there really isn't in America,
Right.
and places to sell. It was still decent. We were probably going to be the lion's share of it here, but there was still Northern California, Washington, Arizona, all this. And I saw a lot of opportunity there, being the distributor mindset. And I said, you know what? We're making a full run at this. I'm going to inventory product, like heavy, like I would normally do. Axles, steering shafts, chassis, everything. And then I filled out every form and application to become a dealer of everything. Before that, we really weren't.
Right.
I mean, tires, engines,
Full
oil,
Magilla.
everybody I could do it with, I did it because I'm like making the full run, going to inventory everything, make a little bit of margin on everything, run a business, and here we go.
Right.
And then I realized that karting is the opposite of distribution and wholesale to retail, whereas a lot of the importers, so a traditional distribution model, an importer imports something, he makes a small to medium margin on it. The reseller, the retailer, makes the larger margin because the distributor has to sell one guy 50 things. The retailer, in theory, has to sell 50 guys 50 things.
Right.
Okay. In karting, it's backwards. Most of racing, it's backwards, I've learned. And it's because a lot of the first people in the food chain, and that's just the way it's been, they end up selling directly to the end user.
Right.
So when people become distributors, they're smart. They realize they don't have to give up that margin because where else are they going to get it from? It's such a small
Right.
channel.
Yeah. You could go to your local dealer. You could also get it from the distributor.
Yeah, and some things I look back now and I shouldn't have even started to sell because the margin was so small, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It was more of an expense of time, energy, and effort to sell it than it was to have it.
Yeah.
Right.
It just became, okay, we have to have it. It's a service because people were paying to be under the tent.
Right.
And they have the data and the coaching and the consistency and the food, big on the food.
Yeah.
As you can tell. So that was a big learning curve for me. And then I started to get a little smarter and go, you know what? Maybe we should, as a collective, teams, talk with each other and help each other out. Because
That's a terrible idea.
We could help each other way more than we could hurt each other, but we could help each other way more.
Sure.
To touch on that really quick, what's something you think that you would like? What was the first part of helping each other you thought you wanted to go down?
Well, the first part was having conversations with people. It was like I thought we should do demo days, like have other teams. Everybody bring your product to
Sure.
the track,
Yeah.
and let's just go demo. Let's just invite people to come out or be set up. And people coming out. Let's say you're doing your rental stuff. We'll pull off of you guys, whatever.
Right.
And nobody thought that was a good idea. Why would I work with you? Why would and again, why would they work with me? We're nobody, right? I have no history or anything with these people, or they don't know how I do business, or that I even do business, or that I even know anything about racing. I don't have any passion about it, whatever.
Sure. You're an unknown commodity.
Yeah, I wasn't part of the group. A lot of these guys had worked together, worked for, sponsored by,
Grew up with.
raced against,
Yeah,
whatever.
very
They
much so.
have a lot of history with each other. I'm nobody. And it took me a while to understand that, it's not going to happen. So I started going back internal and saying, instead of me buying this, I'm going to sell them anyway. I might as well have them made. Let me find out where this is made. So where gear is made, where is this made, where tire, and started making things, saying it's not going to go bad. At least we have the margin. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, my brain starts saying, oh, maybe I can sell it to the teams. Well, no, they don't want it.
Right.
They don't like giving teams don't like giving teams money.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's gotten a lot better.
100%.
And I don't know if it's because it's just everybody's realizing we help each other more than we hurt each other.
But going back a couple of years or a few years or whatever, it was definitely a kind of a dog-eat-dog kind of deal.
Yeah.
Everyone stay in their tent. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe I've just, I've paid my dues a little bit that people go, oh, yeah, he's still here.
Yeah.
He hasn't gone away yet,
The hazing is over.
Yeah.
So, Perry and I had it out at the very beginning, and it was kind of funny and cool because I was doing these demo days at the track, and I didn't know. I sent a thing to everybody under my contact list in Facebook, come out to a demo day. Well, I didn't realize I was friends with people that were his customers on Facebook because they just saw karting and they friended me, and I'll accept whatever.
Gotcha.
And he's like, what are you doing inviting my customers out to the... I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing inviting your customers out to the track.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to steal a customer. I don't want to do that.
Right.
And then I said, well, hey, why don't you come out with your stuff and we'll do it. And he was so involved in so there's no way he even had the time to do it at the time. But he didn't like me.
No. and it makes perfect sense as to why it would have gone that direction. What you're trying to accomplish and how the knock-on effect would be not good. And all that makes perfect sense.
Well, but I didn't know the history of people stealing other people's drivers.
Well, yeah,
I
for sure.
just didn't know that.
You're looking as a larger whole and not the individual pieces of everything.
And most of our drivers, they came to us first. They didn't really come from anywhere. That started to happen later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even then, some of them I would talk them out of it. I'm like, no, it's not the product.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. If you're not happy with the service you're getting, that's another story. But I just think you're frustrated.
Sure.
Right.
I'm not your answer.
Right. You're there to quell frustrations.
Yeah.
So you're doing this thing with ComCart right out of the gate, and we talk about the goals there out of the gate was with the distribution and the money aspect. What about the team side of things? Did you guys have aspirations of being a top tier team, growing from the local team championship deal that you guys had the year prior, and moving forward was like, hey, we're gonna shoot for not just local championships but regional championships, national championships? How big was the scope? How big was the envelope, or excuse me, the umbrella you were trying to go for?
Yeah, so I sat down and I looked at this whole Pro Kart, Pro Tour thing, because that was really what the focus was to look at, the only thing that we were looking at the time. And Nick guided me a lot on this at the time because he knew of and had done a lot of stuff with the series with other drivers. And I kind of laid out a number of what this was going to cost to go make a full run at this Pro Kart Pro Tour thing and see if there's an actual business there, because it wasn't going to be go do Pro Kart Pro Tour, make a ton of money.
Right.
I mean, when I did all the numbers, it really wasn't a financial gain, but it was kind of a necessary evil investment in the business, let's call it.
Sure.
To go do these series.
To your point earlier, nobody knew who you were. So you
Exactly.
have to have a presence in some way.
So we started going to every Pro Tour and every Pro Kart race and LAKC and Tri-C.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes I'd go to a race with 2 guys and not my kid, you know, and, you know, me going there, I really didn't need to be there because it was just another expense, right? But I wanted to get an understanding of everything that's going on.
Right.
My original thought was, yeah, we'd be the local guys and the national team, which was J3. Whenever there's a national race, that's where we go.
Aha.
That was my thinking, but that wasn't their thinking because they had their team.
Right.
And again, it was still that mindset of, we have our guys, you have your guys, you be over there, we'll be over here.
Yeah, you're like a satellite program.
And I always thought differently.
Mm-hmm.
And but I did make the full run. We did okay at the races. It was, I wouldn't say we were anything phenomenal, but we did okay. But it was more of a learning thing for me and an investment. The next year, you know, my accountant wanted to know why I would even think about doing SCUSA races again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, it's where the competition is. It's where you gotta be there. I mean, to give yourself credibility at the local and regional level.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, we did it again, and we had some more drivers. I would say better drivers, more involved drivers. You know, we had there was Dante Yu, there was Nikki Hayes, Travis Irving came over and started running, and we started seeing some wins and podiums. And then we started doing some stuff with the J3 drivers that weren't pitting with J3. They were going to now pit with us at some of the races because it might have been, let's say, their sponsored guy, but they were sold out of room under their tent, you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we took the guy in there and we would work with them, and like in Austin Garrison, for example.
Right.
Yeah, and so that was it. I always thought, kind of in the perfect world, if they had enough distribution around the country, let's say there was a guy in Florida and I was the guy here, and they had a guy in the Northeast, you know, if anybody from Florida or the Northeast wanted to come out here, they would pit with me, and then the factory that would support it. Mm-hmm. You know, like they'd show up in their van or whatever, and we would run that whole program. Then if I went there, and we started doing a little bit of that. I don't know if you remember the pro shows that were here.
I do remember
So
that. Yeah.
I would have the Alavias and the Vicalas and all these guys from J3 come over. They'd pit with us and bring over the guy from J3, and you know, we'd support all that as the local group. And I said, this I think is a great model. This is what I think it's going to start going this way.
For you want to try to do that for your pro karts or pro tours, the bigger stuff.
Yeah, the big races, it should be the quote unquote factory or whatever you want to call it, and then we all pit with them.
Yeah.
But the regional stuff, you know,
Those separate programs are the hub.
and it just didn't work. People looked at it as, oh, you're going to another team, and I'm like, no, not really. No, I mean, yeah, they pitted with me but they're not on my team now.
Right.
You know, I mean, it was the support. It was giving them another option,
Yeah. Same product.
which we're seeing more
Different tank.
now. So we're seeing more and more of that today. Like you'll see people co-pitting with like a PSL, for example. Everybody goes and pits with PSL.
I was going to say, yeah.
PSL isn't the brand, Burrell or whatever.
Yeah.
They're the distributor, but they basically, you know, they run the market. And then, yeah, you know, a lot of people have Tony Kart, so you really have a lot of options as far as where you go and who's a bigger team or whatnot. But you know, you don't see like Tony Kart here,
Sure.
which would be kind of cool if they were.
Yeah, for sure.
But
But to your point, you'll see at the big events, like somebody might pit here at this particular place at all the local stuff, but they go to do the big event, maybe they jump in with Perry.
Right.
Or whatever, that kind of deal.
or Nash, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And we did it. I would send guys on comp carts underneath Perry's tent at a national race because we really needed the support of, you know, the data, the tire changing, the tent space and whatnot. But we weren't with, you know, let's say the national team wasn't there.
Right.
So, and it was a value for them. I think it was a benefit for them. They made the income off of it. It was a benefit for us. We were able to provide the service. But you didn't see a lot of that. And for me, it got to the point where I'm sitting there going, financially, it really doesn't make sense to load everything up and truck across the country for 5-6 guys. I mean, you'll work your butt off. You'll break even. you'll accomplish the goal, but the business really isn't benefiting.
Right.
And for me, people are like, oh, that's cold. You're only thinking about business. And I'm like, I don't think just about business, but I know that the business is there to feed me, right? Not me to feed the business. So
Right.
I have to keep the business alive.
Yeah.
So that way everybody's taken care of. And, you know, I used to say it in the watch world, yeah, it's a race to the bottom for this particular brand, but I guarantee you, unless they grow, they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
Because they're running to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving you it's price. There's no sustainability there. Just like my accountant said, if you keep doing this SCUSA stuff the way you're doing it, there's no sustainability.
Yeah.
I mean,
And as you mentioned, being at those big events, that's where you get the credibility. People know who you are, that kind of stuff. Once you have that, then you really have to start picking and choosing. Like, no, we do know what we're talking about. Well, take what you know, what you're doing, and do it in a way where you can actually make some money and put back into the business, as you say.
well, to have the business, you know, pay the employees.
Right?
I mean, I love
Sustainability.
I mean, most of the guys see me out here. I love doing this. I really do. It's a lot of work. I am emotional just as much as everybody else. And when I used to watch all the kids on the track, the adults, whatnot, if they were under my tent, I was like popping Tums on the side of the track watching them. But, you know, the goal wasn't for me to go and make a killing living doing this. You know, like I never thought that was the goal.
Right.
The goal was to make sure that we had the right people, because I always know having the right people in the right place is the most important thing. They're compensated properly. You have the right insurances. You have, you know, you're doing everything that's to make it sustain and to continue to grow.
Right.
Not just going crazy doing one thing, like buying something crazy.
Right.
And not basing the business on one customer or on one thing. Because if that thing goes away, you're done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've seen people come here and they're crazy, and then all of a sudden they disappear for a while. Then they get somebody else to go fund it again, and then they show back up again.
Right. Is that, and maybe I'm jumping ahead or maybe I'm not piecing it together right, but is that kind of where some of that transition to the GFC thing started to happen? Because I know it wasn't just a light switch. That was a kind of two things in one, two different packages in one for the tent.
Yeah, the GFC with Gary Carlton was it was a long process, actually. I met Gary at Supernats several years ago. He was introduced to me by Travis Irving, and you know, Travis told me, "Oh, this guy's got a go-kart brand. He's coming out. The guy killed it. He used to be a great driver." And I'm like, "Okay."
It's before your time.
Yeah, well, that didn't even matter. It's like, what does any of this mean to what we're trying to do?
Right.
You know, tell me
Get to the point.
what's the goal here? I mean,
Right.
you could have a great strategy, you could have but no plan.
Sure.
You know, you can have an idea, no plan, no strategy. There's the three have to go together for me. And so Gary came over, super nice guy. I remember it was my birthday at Supernats because it was always around the same time. We had a ton of food, and we invited him over, and he and I started talking, and he didn't know me from Adam, so he was being super professional. And he's telling me about the go-karts and the development and what he's done, and I'm like, okay, if I need 50 go-karts tomorrow, can I have them? And he just looked at me. And I said, how about in 2 months? Can I get 50 go-karts? He goes, no. I said, okay, well, let me know when you can deliver me 50 go-karts. And then we stopped talking. And that was it, because with Comp Kart, I was literally in that process of just, we always had an order in.
Yeah.
Just always have stuff coming, because I always wanted to have inventory. They were really good about getting the stuff, or they air freighted it over if we needed it. And it was, they worked hard with us and built it. They were growing like crazy also overseas. They were doing a lot of work there. They were massive in Australia, Comp Kart. And what we saw was it was kind of a little bit of a transition. The J3 guys got into the Rotax stuff, and Mojo Tire, Rotax, they had a lot of distribution around the country. And one of the J's moved to Arizona, and he was kind of in charge of now me, instead of I would go to any of them at the time. Because he was the closest. It made kind of perfect sense. But I think he was also the one in charge of all the Rotax racing stuff, which is not easy, you know.
Right.
So I didn't have that laser focus like I had kind of before.
Right.
Having, you know, if this guy was on the phone, I got that guy, you know.
Right.
And they were doing the proper thing. They were still fun. Even if I went to them, it would funnel everything back to the gentleman that moved out here. And I just don't. I mean, I don't know if the same focus was there, but we were still okay. It's not like we needed a ton of support. We did have an issue where they changed their shifter car from a 30 to a 32 at the time, Comp Kart. We were doing not a lot of shifter, I mean, the only person that ever did a lot of shifter at that point was Musgrave out here. They killed it in shifter. They were the shifter guys.
Right.
We had some shifter, but the guys that had in shifter, I transitioned them over to the new product, and it wasn't as easy to drive. Now, I'm not saying it was bad. It just wasn't as easy to drive for them.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit bigger window.
And it was a lot harder to drive, and they were struggling with it. And the old chassis they loved. It was easier to drive, and they did well with it. And I found out that they got rid of that SKU of the old chassis, the 30 mil on their order form. So I'm like, I don't know what to do here.
Right.
And I did everything I could to try to get these guys to stay, and they ended up buying used GFCs from I forgot even who.
Right.
But they still wanted to pit with us because they liked the service, the data, everything that we were doing.
So the original piece, aside from the conversation with Gary, the original piece was actually people underneath the tent.
Right.
Moving from a comp cart to a GFC in the shifter game.
Yeah. And then I was calling Gary going, hey, can I get some brake pads? I just want to have these guys under the tent. Can I just have some brake pads? He's like, yeah, what do you need? And he would sell them to me, and I'd inventory them. And then I was like, hey, I think I need a steering shaft. Mm-hmm. Give me 2, and then
go from there one thing after another.
It just slowly started, and, maybe it's like any relationship. I was getting a lot of attention from Gary.
Right.
And I wasn't getting a lot of attention on the other side because I just think they had so many irons in the fire. Not that I needed a lot of attention from them, but then it was we were waiting on product and we weren't getting it, but I was noticing other people were.
Uh-huh.
So I was like,
yeah,
okay. I mean, yeah, I know I'd rather sell it at retail than to me at wholesale.
Sure.
But, we've been building the brand. We've been doing a lot with the stuff out here. We were, all in, like a lot of inventory, a lot of merchandise, a lot of product. And then let me try to think what happened here. It was Gary was doing a new tag car. He was developing a tag car.
Right, because obviously Gary Carlton is synonymous with shifters.
Shifter, yeah.
Here in the States, and obviously goes over to Europe, kicks ass doing that kind of stuff. Want to get him on the show at some point. But shifter stuff and Gary makes sense. It was that transition to the tag, which was kind of the new era for those guys.
Right, and you're going to go, Comp Kart, their product was good. Basically, it's Tony Kart on the top, and then I always say the rest of us are getting the scraps. And in the watch world, it was Rolex was on the top, and if you got like 2% of the scraps of Rolex, you could do a phenomenal business.
Right.
Gotcha. Right.
So OTK was on the top. They make a great product. The quality's there. Everybody has it. If you want to know how to set up your go-kart, just walk up and down the grid. You'll figure it out. They just got it dialed in. It's what they do. So for me to now go to something else was a big question mark, and I was nervous.
Especially after being with the same one for several years.
I was just about to say all the knowledge you just had from one chassis and kind of developing that one throughout the years. And not really developing, but just
having been
there.
It
was consistent.
The path has been laid down.
It was consistent because we had been down that road. We tried other go-karts, and one to the next model, which was supposed to be the same, were very different.
Right.
But it was always consistent. It was consistent product. Everybody had consistent results. The material was good. The parts were quality. It was all there. I think they did a really good job, and it's definitely not easy. Absolutely not easy. And plus, then they got global distribution.
Right.
I think now they're in Germany, Australia, Japan, France. They're the UK. They're big. They're everywhere. They send containers of go-karts to these places, and they do a really good job. But for me, it was, okay, well, I've got these guys that all want this shifter, and even though it's the smallest part of my business, let me go try it. And at that point, I had Jake Drew driving with us, who was driving on a comp kart, and I kind of got him a little support from J3 and from me, and we were doing it together. And we went out and we tested this tag car that Gary got the first one over here and had Alex and Jake go drive it at Willow.
Yeah.
Different tire compounds and stuff like. And they both came off the track and they just went, wow, this thing is really good. And I'm like, okay, now I'm nervous because can you replicate this?
Right.
I'm starting to understand how this industry works. It's not always the same material.
Sure.
And so we had a lot
As
more.
you say, one same model, different go-kart, if you think about it. Yeah.
Of course, I bought that one right there.
Right.
And the only person that ran it was my son.
Yeah.
Because it was not the focus for the customers.
Right.
And in all honesty, he was on an island. Alex was on an island. Travis was helping him. But Comp Kart was still the focus. We were going to Phoenix. We did was the Andy's race that he did in Phoenix.
The CRC race?
CRC at night. No, it was Challenge. Or was it CRC?
Either or.
Yeah.
Depends on what year we're talking about.
Again,
Because-
years and me are horrible.
Yeah, if it was in the wintertime, it would have been
It
challenge.
was just after it was
after
we came back
Shut
from
down.
the
Yeah,
shutdown.
shut down. Yeah,
then it
that's
was
what
CRC. Yeah.
CRC. But we that was really the first kind of run we had with the thing.
How was it that late? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember first,
Just a little over a year.
yeah.
That was only one go-kart.
When I did
though.
the track day with you guys at Willow, that was the first time I saw Alex on the GFC.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh
So-
man, it is that because I actually remember getting a chance to drive it here. It was
So
actually
that already been about a
yours.
month or two in the making.
Yeah. Wow. I forget it has not been that long.
It has not been that long. So, I look back and I go, hey, man, I remember how long it took us with Comp Kart to get to the point where we were comfortable enough with the product to be able to talk about it. It had the window that it needed. We knew where to go in directions of tuning and everything. And I'm going down this road again with another tag car, and that's the business. That was the tag business. It was like either you're in it or you're not.
Right.
Shifter, a little bit, with all the motor changes and stuff in Shifter, you can have a few customers, but or Cadet, either you're all in or you're not.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things Gary is like, hey, you should try my Cadet car. And I go, are you kidding me? The Shifter guy is telling me to try his Cadet car.
Right.
He goes, no. I work with these guys, TB Kart out there. They developed their car, but I wanted to make mine, and I asked them to make it this particular way, and it seems to do really well when we run it up in Sonoma. So I'm like, all right, I'll buy one.
Well, and before we go too far on the Cadet deal, that tag thing went pretty well too.
Yes, but it was still a struggle for us because it was good, but it was one of those things where there's still going to be that learning curve,
Right.
and you hate it
Yeah.
Right.
because
Getting
you
through
want to
the
think
kinks.
right out of the box.
When
right?
I think, and I want to say the Cadet thing kind of happened later in the year. Things went pretty well in the GFC game.
It was before that. It was we got one in, and we were just basically testing it.
Yeah.
Testing it. And I kind of like pushed it over to Nick at the time. Really, let's give this a fair shake and see what we got here, if we think it's any good. Because we did a lot of work with J3 developing the Comp Kart Cadet, because the very first Comp Kart Cadet was okay. The last iteration of it was really good. So I said, let's see what we have here. And Nick went out and tested it, and he came out. He's like, this thing is really good. It's there. I mean, there's a lot to do here. We think we can get something out of this. And I'm like, all right, well, now let me talk numbers and see where we're going to be on this thing.
Right.
And, at that time, I think we had little Caden Chrisman and Tristan Murphy under the tent, and we had Tristan drive it, and they did really well with it. And I'm like, okay, so it's not horrible.
Right.
We got somewhere to go here. So now we have a shifter. We have a tag that seems to be there, and we got a Cadet that's there.
Gotcha. So you actually had more confidence in the Cadet.
So
than
now
the
I'm feeling more comfortable with the line. The guy, Gary Carlton, who is literally the chef, the cook, and the bottle washer. He's
Right.
he's all in. When it says live your passion on the stuff, it's literally he is all in. I said, all right, I think we're going to do this. I'm nervous as hell. I don't want anybody to think it was just like, oh, get rid of that brand and we're going to go to this. I was nervous, because I knew how the Comp Kart worked. I knew I could put it on track. I knew where to start it. I knew where it was going to go depending on the tire we were on. I had no idea. And Gary told me what to do.
Right.
He's like, this is what we're going to start. This is going to go, blah, blah, blah. He goes, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds opposite of what we do, but okay.
Yeah.
And it turned out he was right. But, so then we started making this transition, and the product's good. It doesn't suck. So we slowly stopped doing stuff with J3, and I told him, I'm like, look, I'll still support the guys that are out here. I'll still parts, whatnot. And they weren't happy about it.
Sure.
They were not happy about it at all.
Right.
And I said, but, this is why this happened. This is how we got to where we are. And, it's not that we're unfriendly with each other. It's just just the way it is.
Breakups are tough, no matter
So
how
I went,
you go about it.
went in all full with Gary. It was the Pro Kart race at Willow.
Yeah.
I basically did the first big order with him to get stuff over here. And from then on, we've just hit the ground running. And now helping him on both sides of it. So on the business side, he's done a phenomenal job for being a one-man show. but realizing how it was done, I said, look, I'm going to always lean on you when it comes to driver coaching or setup or stuff. You got to lean on me when we're talking about manufacturing and distribution and importing and scheduling. And he goes, okay. So he said, I don't know business. I can figure it out, but I don't know. And I said, yeah, and I'm not a racer, but I can figure it out.
So you guys' powers combined is kind of where you're at right now.
And it works really well. He and I work very well together. I take everything he says, and he takes everything I'm saying, and we apply it.
Yeah.
So it's been a really good relationship. We went over to Italy together because I said, if we're going to do this, let's go meet with the factory, the people who are actually producing everything. And so we went to Tibby Kart. He has a long-term relationship with them, and I don't. Here I am, the business guy coming over. Again, now it's like when I started out in the paddock, nobody knew who the heck I was. And, this guy's just here to go talk with them about production schedules, ordering processes, how we're going to get things distributed, how we're going to get things scheduled in shipping, and how we'll adjust that throughout the year. So then it helped them order their parts that they don't make in-house. And also pricing, because, hey, Gary, sorry when you hear this, but the guy's making no money on go-karts at the time.
Right, yeah.
Still a startup.
He's literally all in to make this thing successful, and it's his thing. This is what he's going to be successful at it.
Well, I was going to say, just like any business, there's always so much of that sacrifice within the small year of getting the name out there, but probably not making as much money as you'd like.
Like every business across the board, as you start up, like making money out of the gate, it's going to be tough. It's a couple year plan, few year plan.
The growing pains are tough in
Yeah.
karting because it's a huge in any racing. It's a huge investment with a very little cash return.
Right.
And the long term, whereas like you could look at a distribution of a product and say, oh, well, we'll look at the long term. The long term in karting in racing is hard because most of the consumers are a 3 to 5 year consumer. So I don't know if a lot of people look at that. I mean, not a lot of people stay in karting for more than 5 years.
Yeah, if you're
They're
trying to
looking to go somewhere else.
if you're looking at a long term run on a whether it be customer or chassis or what have you, you need to try to sell as many as you can in a short period of time. Because you don't know if you got hype or you got anything going your way, or maybe a tire changes or maybe an engine changes, and now your product doesn't work as well as it used to, or what have you.
Right.
Yeah, things change pretty damn quick. So you got this partnership with GFC now, and things roll through after we come back. We kind of open back up and start going racing again. And things start rolling pretty good. Rock Vegas, I think, is when
it was Rock Vegas.
The big success happened last fall.
Yeah, we went out there with we have 7-8 drivers. John Crow and Master Shifter. We had Jake Drew in GP. We had 1, 2, 3. I think we had 400cc drivers, and we had 2 cadets. So that's a pretty nice array of drivers.
And that's Formula Works specifically, not necessarily
Formula
GFC.
Works. We were pitted next to GFC, but it was Formula Works on its own program, doing its own data, doing its own everything. I mean, support, whatever. Gary was great. He came over and he talked to all the cadets about, his driver coaching them when he watched them on the track or look at their videos. And, with quote-unquote now this is the new chassis that Gary had developed. We had a full kind of run on it. We weren't horrible in the 100cc. We just didn't have drivers that had a lot of experience like the ones that are out there. I mean, we got guys 20 years old, in 100cc that have been racing since they're 7.
Yeah.
And we had Jake Drew in the GP, and Jake ended up winning.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool. He didn't win, technically. I'm giving air quotes right now. Came in second. But then the guy in first was DQ'd because of the engine. But it was phenomenal to watch him, wheel the kart around the track, and he loved the product, and it just helped. It helped. I wouldn't say sell more go-karts. It really made everybody feel more comfortable, about what they were doing.
Sure.
And even us. And
absolutely.
Who knows, Gary? Gary probably felt comfortable already.
But it was definitely a good way to end the year.
Yeah, it was.
When you talk about a relationship that started, 6 to 8 months prior, in that regard, where you're like, you got a lot of trepidation, you're not sure, like, all right, we're going to do this. It's definitely one of those things where you can go, especially the timing of it. In November, you get a chance to go into the new season, the new year, this year, and be like, all right, all right, we feel good about this. Now we can kind of go all in, got a good foundation, and really start working on the new formula.
Yeah. The nice thing was, it doesn't work without Gary being as open as he is.
Right.
He's really super open about he's open about being open. Like, he's not just going to shut you off because he thinks he knows something better, or he might even know something better.
If there's a way, if it's constructive and, can help develop the brand or whatever,
absolutely.
He's all ears.
He's 100% listening, 100% giving you his input back. Nothing sugar-coated. So it's really laser-focused, which is kind of cool. Because nobody has time to go dance around it and be politically correct and whatnot, because there's just too much happening too quick for the next race to come up.
Right. Yeah, it is a busy schedule.
One of the things we did talk about with Gary was like, look, you need help. You can't just be that one-man show anymore. And that's where Sonny Cervelli came in.
Yeah.
And we kind of worked together to make that happen. Gary,
another smart cookie right there.
He's a great guy. Great guy. He's the guy you want to be around.
Yep.
Great personality, great attitude. And he now is, all in with Gary. And if I'm lucky enough, I get him down here too, which we get more and more.
Yeah.
But, having that ability where people can come be on the product, whether they're from NorCal or East Coast or whatnot, and the message is the same, is the key.
Yeah. Well, it definitely seems like a kind of a match made in heaven here with you guys. It's been a year and a half. Not even a year and a half. You guys are working on your second trip to Vegas here coming up. How has this first year with everything gone, and what's kind of the outlook here as we go into these big races in the fall? Supernats for the first time as a group, and Rock Vegas for the second time.
Right. Outlook. I mean, what's nice is we're all real comfortable on the material. That's the key. The engine packages were real solid on how they work. I don't even think about the shifter stuff anymore. It's Gary. I don't even think. I have a lot of great support from guys, with Travis Irving supporting everything we do, and he's all in, and he's got a full-time job and a family and kids.
Yeah.
I got Cody Diggs, works at the shop nonstop to get everything prepped and ready, and he's driving. He's doing phenomenal. Alex helps out, and Ray Tobin is just a valuable asset that I don't think we could get it all done without. So to go into these bigger races at the end of the year, the nice thing is we've already got our plan of who's doing it and what we're testing. So we know when we get there, we've just taken those things out of the equation, whether it's engine or kart or whatnot. And we just can do what we do, focus on the driver.
Right.
I don't want to tell everybody, like we're the fundamentals, basics team. It's where you want to start. That's part of it. But you can go to an NFL team, you can go to an NHL team, you can go to an NBA team. 50% of their practices are still fundamentals.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's at the highest level of pro whatever.
Yeah.
Not saying the other teams don't do it. I just don't know because I'm not under their tents.
Sure.
But
that's what you guys hang your hat on for sure.
I know that if I see them not doing their fundamentals and the day's not going well, I'm going right back to that.
Right.
Because they need to get that down. I mean, if it's engine or car, we can figure that out. The data doesn't lie.
Yeah.
But, that's the focus of us getting prepared beforehand. We're going to put the time, energy, and effort in, and we got the people to do that to make sure when we get to the track, we've checked off those boxes. Engine check, kart check, everything tired, everything's checked off. We're just driving, and we're working with the driver. And that's it. That's been my goal since day one, and I feel like we got there with Comp Kart. I started over a little bit with GFC, but it really wasn't as hard as a transition as it could have been because of the people that we have and the support that we get from Gary and Sonny. But really, without Travis and without Ray and without Cody and Alex and all these guys, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel really confident right now. It's more of the people. And I know there's the teams, like Seth, I think, has done a great job in pairing these guys. They've got a good network of guys that work with them. And my hat's off always to these guys because I know how hard it is to get to what we're doing. And I've maybe been a little bit more fortunate on the start side because I had a nice little base to pull from. Whereas I know these guys bootstrapped it all and they did it all on their own. And it's not easy. And they're making a living and they're families and that's how they put food on their table. It's not easy.
Right.
Not easy at all.
Yeah. And if we talk about how things started and kind of where things are going, you started because the kid
I was
got
just about to say, yeah.
a cart from Grandpa, and now the kid we see driving a little less. I should almost say a little more these days, but he's doing he's getting older. He's doing other things now, and kid is bloody tall. Like karting and him, he may be getting out the if he does anything, shifters as he gets older, because he's starting to outgrow these things. It started by putting him in the seat, and he's definitely doing it less. How does this go with maybe there not being an Alex, and is that going to be in the future?
Well, so to your point, he's driving a little bit more now. It's because we were testing more and more stuff, and I needed somebody to do it with.
Right.
And I figured if I was going to get to the extreme of, jacking and grip, I had that driver.
Yes, you did.
Right.
So
a smaller Travis Irving.
Anyway.
In width, not height.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Travis actually worked a ton with Alex. It got him to, be a better driver. But it started that way, but once it became the business side for me to really grow this and make the company Formula Works more successful. I mean, trust me, the kid wanted to go do races that I'm like, yeah, we're not going. If you want to go do that race, find somebody to go with. That's not what the business is doing.
Right.
And then there's races that we go to that obviously he doesn't go to. But it's the business is not based around whether or not he races.
Right.
100% not. Because for me, financially, if he doesn't race, it's great.
Yeah. We're back in the green.
Yeah. Woo! And I make him work his ass off, like driver coaching days and whatnot.
Right.
And just, just like anybody who works with the goal is they should make a living and the business should profit from it.
Yeah.
I use the kid for the same thing.
Yep.
If I can. But yeah, no, he's in college now. He's 19. He's the girlfriend. I mean, his focus, I don't think, is as much at the track as it used to be.
Sure.
But it was his whole world growing up. That's where his friends were. You guys know you're in racing. You're not just doing it, 1-2 days a week and you go hang out with your friends somewhere else. This was the world.
Yeah.
Right.
And the fact that we had a business, he was even more involved.
Sure.
From every aspect. But, he can do everything from working on the go-karts to driving the karts to, he's pretty comfortable around all of it. But I don't know if it's his focus for future. Maybe he'll be that Masters driver that comes back
Yeah.
30 years old and
Right.
whatever it is and says, yeah, I used to drive back in the day. You guys tell me, we had, I don't know. I always bring up the JICA thing because that's what I hear.
Yeah.
So, back in the JICA days, I'm like, oh, God, here we go again.
I wouldn't know anything about that. But kind of like your uncle did with you, you're probably going, yeah, you should probably get into computers.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. He does a lot of design stuff. He does, he's designed helmets for guys. He does a lot of logo design. He actually does pretty okay with it
I
selling
saw
stuff.
he just started
Nice.
trying some of that stuff out.
He's doing a T-shirt brand that he's been selling a bunch of. And but that's his passion. That's what I think he really enjoys is the
Right.
design side. Loves racing because he gets it. It's a more introverted kind of sport.
Sure.
And I love watching him race. It just I'll lose it out there
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
watch him race. So it's still my passion watching the boy. Just like when I watch my other son play ice hockey, I lose it there because I played when I was younger, and
Yeah.
when he does something that I'm like, oh geez, I didn't even know he could do that.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, now you are a full-on team owner, and we got plans going forward to try to be one of the better teams and stay at the top, whether or not you have a kid in it or not. Before we let you go on this thing, once again, thanks for jumping on board with us. But if there was, as you go into these next couple of years, and it is just going to be about the team, and like you said, you've got a partner in Gary, where he's living his passion. Obviously, you've got a lot of passion for it as well. If there's one thing that you could do maybe to make a change or an adjustment to kind of grow your corner of it, or your part of the sport for longevity or make an improvement, what would that be? And is there something that you can do as a team to not just grow as a team, but also help grow the rest of the program?
Yeah. I always have a hard time answering that, and I'll tell you why. Because I never look at – so when I look at an industry, I always look at it as a whole. And we did this in watches where we started an American Watch Guild that didn't exist before, and we got everybody involved, and it made everybody better. So, yeah, I can go full-on crazy and just focus on Formula Works and just killing it with everything. that doesn't do anything for the long term of where Formula Works needs to feed from.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always of that mindset of we get, collaborate with other teams, and we're doing a lot more of that than we ever did before, and to make it better all around, or getting guys together to come up with a common goal or a common solution to something, and help out everybody.
Right.
Because I could just focus on getting drivers, getting go-karts, getting motors, selling product, making stuff, making more money on it. It's a full-time job, right?
Right.
But if the rest of it's not there, if I don't have competition, you don't have the chance to grow.
Yeah. If you don't have other teams to race against, if you don't have series to race
absolutely.
in, tracks to race at, so on and so forth, we're all connected.
100%. And I just, one of the things, it was a little easier in the watch world because there was a lot more dollars involved, at least in the margin and the profit side, that people could invest in. Oh, yeah, we'll all join this watch guild group and we'll give them a little bit of money and see how they help out the stores. And what they did is we went in the stores and they trained people on watches, which brands didn't do back then.
Right.
So we started doing kart camps years ago, bringing kids in training. And I always thought, when I did hockey camps when I was a kid, or football camps, every school was there.
Right.
You had a coach from this school, a coach from that school, this team, that team, pro guy, whatnot, all there. And it wasn't because they were trying to sell their school or whatnot. It was being involved.
Yeah.
And making the base better to then grow the top end. And we're starting to see that a little bit. I try to pioneer it a little bit, or get people to get on board with me. It's still a struggle. I think we might have something at the end of this year that we might be able to put together with a few guys to maybe even just, if it's basics, like a camp, for example, and different levels from cadet to full size to maybe even some shifter stuff. But that's my thing, is really kind of to grow it that way, because it's very different here than it is in Europe, where there's a governing body and a structure and an organization. You can base a business off of it.
Right. Everything's the same.
Yeah, everything there you can really base and plan a business off of, and see how you want to grow it.
Right.
Here, it's very reactionary, and that's good and bad. But there is no governing body. There's this race series, there's that race series.
Right.
And they all have their own sets of whatever, and neither one of them really cares what the other one does and acknowledges it. It doesn't matter. And we have to live within that world, and it makes it more of a challenge that we have to focus on that than focusing on growing it as a whole.
Sure.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
But I think if the teams or the groups got together and wanted to work at it as a collaborative kind of thing, it could grow more than anybody ever thought.
Sure.
But that's that next level.
Baby steps.
That next level of, like, I can't just show up at the track one day, nobody's ever heard of me before, and I'm supposed to get respect.
Right.
It's people will only see it when they see it.
Yeah.
Or they feel it.
Right.
That really did pay off, or hey, this really did work out. Or I can only use the analogy of when guys tell me, oh, well, we're going to leave so and so because the cart's shit, and they come and they want to do a demo day. That was my first curse word, by the way. They want to do a demo way. They want to do a demo day, and they come out, and I'm sitting there, and they're driving, they're getting coached, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with the stuff you're on. It has nothing to do with it. It's just, I just think the message you're getting, you don't understand.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's
and I tell them, go back.
Yeah, with teams, it's chemistry. It's a lot of getting along with people. I mean, I know when we ran the CSK racing team, there's other people on the exact same equipment, and there's other organizations with really, really good equipment and really, really good drivers and like that. For whatever reason, you're just not clicking. That's all it is. But I guarantee you, it's not the stuff that you're driving. 9 times out of 10, it's not the stuff you're driving. You're just not clicking with the people around you.
Yeah. What I've learned over these years is the material is pretty damn good across the board. For the most part, you're not going to have something that's just crap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then there isn't that thing that is just so freaking good, there's no way you can never not be on it.
Right.
And just look at any really, really good driver, put them behind the wheel of anything, they're going to do okay. They may not like the way they have to drive it, but they're going to do okay.
Right.
It's the same. It's the same within the sport, we have all these things that this one's supposed to be better than that one's supposed to be better than that one as far as series or whatnot or where you're supposed to go, instead of looking at it as they're all really good. You know, how can they all live together?
Yeah.
And really benefit from each other? I mean, you want to go back to the old days. I used to go to car shows as a kid, right? One car show would always let the other car show promote that there was another car show.
Oh, gotcha.
Because if
At
there's
the
more
event.
people
More peop-
involved in car shows,
Yeah.
you
Then
get to
they're
have
all
more
gonna-
car shows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was,
All going to gain from it.
you know, we did it in watches. It wasn't my brand versus his brand. It was, we're both luxury brands.
Right.
What are you looking for this one? And, you know, they might have both
Right.
and they could coexist,
Yeah.
you know, but it's definitely not that way yet here.
Yeah.
And maybe one day there will be a governing body, maybe not in my lifetime, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And a little bit more consistency to what we're all doing. But my hat's off to everybody that they got to where they are right now, because I know the struggles we've had, and it's a challenge. It's
Yeah.
a challenge, but it's a passion. You got to love what you do. I think everybody that we see at the track is 100% in. Nobody's doing it because they feel like they have to.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Everybody's there because they want to be there, which is what I really love about the sport.
Yeah. Well, and obviously over the last couple of hours talking to you absolutely care very much about not just the sport itself, but also the people involved in it. Like you said, one of the things that drew you to it, or maybe had you sticking around, was not just the motorsports aspect. It's certainly not just because you had a kid that liked to do it and you like to do it, but it's also the people involved in it. And
100%.
you can. And I've gotten a chance to be under your tent before as a competitor. I know Derek already, he is now, and that's one of the things that I can tell underneath the tent is that there's definitely a family aspect of it, of people working together. And I know other teams have that as well, but that right there is what karting's all about. And I know you guys have it in spades under the Formula Works tent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's cool.
Once again, Tony, thanks so much,
dude.
man.
Pleasure,
this
guys.
has been a lot of
Really
fun
good time.
to find out what you're all about, especially a cat who didn't get started in it and came out of nowhere and
Yeah.
did pretty damn good.
Every
Okay.
every race weekend, I get a little glimpse of your past. You know, just some BS 5-minute story you had about what you used to do. So it was pretty cool to get it all from beginning to end, man.
Yeah.
Or to now, at least. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Now he knows everything.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Thanks for being on the show, man.
Appreciate
Thanks, guys. Love what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Awesome.